What is going on, everyone? Let me know if you can hear me in the comments and then we can get started. Had some issues with StreamYards today. That's why I'm a few minutes late, so I do apologize. Not sure what the heck is going on. Can everyone hear me? All right, perfect. Hope everyone's doing pretty well this weekend. It's Sunday here in Australia. If you're based here, obviously, you know that. Pretty warm today here in Sydney, so it's pretty good. It's going to be about 35 degrees, which I think is close to 100 on your US scale. So it should be good. After this is done, I'm going to go to a family's house and go for a swim, and that should be good. Good to have, hot weather like that after the shit show we've had in Sydney in particular the last few months with it being raining non-stop. So it's good that summer is back. Kiwi Cards is here basically saying Sunday here too. You're a little bit more in the future than I am. Unfortunately, your Warriors didn't make the NRL Grand Final, which is on later today, equivalent of our Super Bowl for the rugby league. So that's good. My team's not in it this year. We made the final last year, and the team that beat us is in it. Again, they're looking like they're going to win 3 in a row, which is disappointing because they're our biggest rival. So yeah. Did anyone have any questions maybe before we got into some of the topics today? Because there's a few things to talk to, whether it be, those Panini, cards that I shared in my video yesterday that looked like they were thrown in the dumpster. There's a bit of an update around that. And then also this buyback program from the Tops regarding those duplicate superfractors. There's a few things I want to share on that because I think they can maybe do a little bit more than what they're doing right now. And I'll clarify that a little bit later on as well. And then also we have the Shayway vlogs, whatever his name was, basically coming out with those shill bidding allegations. So there's a few things I want to talk to on that as well, because he's since come out and confirmed that he did in fact shill bid. And there's a few things that I want to talk to there that I think is pretty interesting. And as Kiwi Cards does say, let me just move my screen over here. Actually, give me a sec, guys, so I can actually see the comments better. The hobby's getting crazy. It's just funny how sort of things like they'll show up, right? And this stuff that we've talked to, that I will talk to today, is nothing really new. You see it sort of happen every now and then, but it's like one of those things where when it rains, it pours, right? And it feels like that at the moment, where you've basically got all this stuff popping off, and it just seems to be happening all at the same freaking time. So it's just pretty interesting. We've got Ashton's cards here. How's it going? It's mid-80s in Minnesota. It's just weird because, like, in Sydney, it's been so cold for so long that we're heading into summer, but it's essentially just coming in like bang hot. I was at a funeral on Friday and it was twice as hot. It was ridiculous. Basically nearly died. So it would have been good to be at the funeral place because I would have had far to go, but you get what I'm saying. Warriors suck, not as much as the Eels suck this year because at least they made the finals. How's it going? And then Robert here as well. Yeah, the sports card world is truly a shit show these days. Indeed, I think it's just one of those things where it's always been like that, right? So it's no real surprise. And I think, like, just on this comment, right? You've got people always pointing the finger at Ken and Gold and all that sort of stuff. But the thing that people need to realize is that so many of these businesses have similar histories, have similar issues, have similar mistakes in the past, and I think that's where people sort of let themselves down because you need to look at it through the lens that are essentially they're all as bad as each other. There's no real white knights from a business perspective, in my opinion, which is disappointing, but it is what it is. You got a question, when will Neo stop with the tinfoil hat brigade shit every time? He does talk to this enough, and apologies for not swearing, even though I did in my video the other day because YouTube will flag this and take it down. But you see a lot of guys do talk to that sort of stuff, and then I'm just not sure why that is the case because Neo has talked to some of this stuff before. It's just an interesting one how you've got so many people sort of downplaying, asking these kinds of questions or approaching content from that perspective, even though it's been proven to have had traction, right? There's so many stories that have come up over the last, 12 to 24 months from the likes of AOH Sports, Sports Card Radio, myself, many others, that people said were stupid. But now it's like, well, okay, maybe it's not stupid. And I think you're sort of seeing it with this, Tops buyback program as well, because so many people are not talking about that issue and they're sort of praising what Tops is doing here as well without actually looking at the detail as to who this is actually impacting as well. And there's a few things that need to have been done better there. And this is actually an interesting comment, Kiwi Card. So there's something I'm going to talk to a little bit later on that someone shared with me just before I came on live that indicates why the likes of Michael Rubin is maybe not as good as what people think he is for the hobby moving forward, because this talk about a direct line, they've shown recently by cutting ties with someone that they maybe don't want people holding them accountable, and I'll get to that a little bit later on. Any more Bowman 1-of-1s? I'm not sure if any have since showed up, but we know there's 95 now in total based on what Topps have come out and said. You're watching what cataloging your sports cards. Keen to know what ones you're still working through, or what ones you're holding for the long term. For me, cards are just cards for me, right? I don't hold them for the short term or long term. I collect them because I collect them. And then if they're worth money one day, they're worth money one day. But it's also always funny how you've got people that are sort of focusing on that investing side of things specifically, when it's just so funny that they're just pieces of cardboard at the end of the day and they're worth so much money, which is always pretty weird to me. You're working in a container. Good luck in that heat, mate, because it's freaking spicy. It's not even 11 o'clock yet. And it's hot as shit outside already, so it's going to be a hot one. 75, okay, so 75 of the 95 have already been pulled then. It would be funny for China superfractor counterfeit was set to top. And that's entirely possible, right? If you go check out some of these websites, you can have these cards made for you and they're not that expensive. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody did in fact do that. And they're launching a mini kick, like that's also a good one. But maybe we can get started now. Just give me a sec to figure out how to share my screen properly. Let me know when you guys can see that, or I think you can. Let's bring on my other screen. So this is one that I talked to in my video yesterday that is pretty interesting. How's it going, Collector's Dream? You would have heard me talk about this yesterday, saying that essentially these cards were found in a dumpster, right, by this person, and they were all unsigned cards for Jackson Merrill, I should say, and they include the 1-of-1s here. You can see they include all the golds. It's essentially every card of Jackson Merrill from Immaculate 2023, including the printing plates, as well as a crap ton of stickers that you can't see on this post here, but there's about 2,000 stickers that were also found in the trash along with all this sort of stuff. So it's a pretty wild situation. AH is in the house. How's it going, mate? That we've got a bit more information come to light. So yesterday you would have heard me talk to that these cards were found in the trash. We weren't really sure what went wrong. It looked like, per this letter, that I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but Panini essentially sent this to him and had a deadline of the 21st of the 6th. I think they even said somewhere else that they need them back. It might be on the third page, around needing to be back by 30 June, right? And it's now past September. It's 1st of October here in Australia. And these cards were obviously not returned to Panini. They're found in the trash. What the heck is going on? It looks like the player either was meant to sign them themselves, obviously signed them themselves, no one else was going to sign it for them, and he threw it in the trash or moved out of this apartment, as is told in that story, and somehow forgot about them, or somebody, which is one of the rumors going around right now, got a hold of these and was maybe in the process of stealing them. Now, the big concern here that I talked to yesterday, that I think a lot of people sort of didn't quite understand why it was super relevant, is how Panini sort of shit the bed here, right? Because people are saying, well, how can you blame Panini when the athlete is the one who's not signed them? You could blame Panini because, like that letter just said, they received those cards at the very start of June. We're now in October. They had a deadline at the end of June, i.e. 30 June, and they still didn't get the cards back. So it's essentially been 3 months since Panini's deadline, and they didn't really seem to do anything. You'd think that if there was a deadline that needed to be met in order to get these cards, right, Panini would be chasing this person and not wait sort of 3 months for cards to end up in the trash for the community to find out about them. Do you know what I mean? Like, the expectation here is that Panini should have done a heck of a lot more than what they did, because 3 months is a long time, right? And then you sort of factor that into how many redemptions are in product these days and why these guys have issues getting product in hand. It's just an interesting one that I think they need to do a heck of a lot better at. And this is something that impacts Topps as well, right? It's not just Panini that have issues like this. Now, reading the Reddit thread again early today, and again, I put this in my link yesterday, so if you do want to have a look, please do check it out. But it seems as though the person is maybe in touch with someone from the Players Association or someone from the sporting organization or even someone from Panini. It seems the story's a bit mixed up, but it looks like there's some correspondence going on to try and get these back in the hands of Jackson Merrill to get him to sign them. But it's just pretty wild how something like this can happen in this day and age, and these businesses still allow this kind of crap to happen, right? These boxes are not cheap, right? These cards are a little bit on the more expensive side compared to other things, right? Immaculate's not a cheap set. No sets are cheap these days, but the fact that you can have something like this go wrong is just pretty wild, in my opinion, and something that they need to do a shit ton better at, because it's not good enough. The fact that you can have not only the cards themselves, but the printing plates and then the pens, and then you have things like the letter detailing, as well as the bigger issue, the fact that there's 2,000 stickers in there. That's 2,000 stickers that are unsigned, that could be tampered with, committed fraud, all that kind of thing. So it's just a really messy situation. That's nothing new for the hobby, but the fact that this can still happen in this day and age when they charge us the money they do is, unacceptable. And if you guys want me to go on a bit of a rant from an accounting perspective and an external auditor perspective, which is what I do for a living, and explain the breakdown out at Panini to allow this to happen, I can, but that might just be a bit too technical for you guys. It's just one of those things where it's not acceptable. And apologies if you can hear my daughter crying. She's about to go down for a nap. They were sent to a guy named Jackson Merrill and not the ML. Yeah, that's a good one. Someone told me today they reckon that maybe someone tied to these guys try to steal these cards, because it's just an interesting one. But again, we won't know for certain. Yeah, well, the interesting thing here, I'm not sure what your question's referring to, but just think about the fact that this guy has, examples of what Jackson Merrill's autograph looks like, because you can look online, the fact that you can get access to auto pen machines in China, the fact that he's actually got the pens that Panini use. It's like, how much damage could be done to this hobby if you wanted to? It's almost impossible to find scented cards these days. That's just the general thing. I didn't watch the AFL Grand Final, unfortunately, global, but apparently it was a good one. I saw that maybe the Lions got screwed over at the end there, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts on that. How's it going, Mikey G? Those stickers need to be destroyed. And that's one other piece I want to quickly talk to here is, if this person is now in touch with the people out at Panini or the player himself to get these cards and stickers back to him, how do we now know that some of these cards didn't accidentally get misplaced along the way, right? That's the part that also concerns me here. I think Panini is probably in their best position to just not put these product as redemptions. Give the people that hit these cards, or the redemptions, I should say, because they are a redemption in the product, a buyback program similar to what Topps have done, or give them some sort of compensation. But the risk now is these cards could have been slipped, one or two taken out. I think the risk is too high. I think you just don't put them in the product and you put out a statement or something. The sticker part is the big worry, because you can't track those, right? So you're never going to know if somebody's done any hanky-panky with it, which is very disappointing. And basically you've got QC issues aboard, right? If it's not centered, it's going to have, or if it is centered, it's going to have issues with the card itself. That's a huge problem. How's it going, Ziggy? Issue with Panini is who has oversight. They don't give a crap. Printers go brr, and lawsuits rather make a good product. But see, the thing here, right, is that I want people to remember is Topps is no better, right? Look at this situation with these duplicate super frackers. Look at the situation with the cards that were stolen. Like, I want to emphasize this, right? They had cards stolen before Topps Chrome release, before Bowman regular release, right? 6 months before each of these products came out. Cards were stolen. They didn't get replaced within the product by what it seems, and they were put fake autos on them, and they were sold to the general public. Some of these graders have graded it. So people see this and they'll shit on Panini, but Topps is just as bad, guys, right? These businesses are just as bad as each other, and you need to call them all out with the same heat, because that's how you get a better value and offering for us as customers in the long run. Thank you. Exactly. And it's sort of good to see that the guy in the Reddit thread is talking about he doesn't want to be seen as a bad guy. He's doing whatever he can to try and get these back to people, but who knows if he's already taken some of these things? Who knows if he's already sold them? Who knows if somebody found them before he found them in the trash? There's all these things, right, that is just so tainted now. I don't think you can put these cards into the product itself, because it would be far too risky, in my opinion. So they get the orders back from the athletes who verify they sign them. It depends on the situation. So sometimes Topps and Panini will use an independent party, and that independent party will just be a contractor who oversees. And in the case of Topps with their backdoored cards, it looks like the person who oversaw the signing session is the one who sold them. Sometimes they use a relative of the athlete, a friend of the athlete, or even sometimes the athlete themselves. They essentially just sign a waiver saying they've got the liability if something goes down, that they've actually signed them themselves. So it's a bit of a mess. It's a hard thing to manage. They need to do better when it comes to these kinds of things, but it's really hard. When you think about how you're going to get so many athletes to sign cards, it's like, how do you exactly do it for, how do you do it efficiently for them as a business, right? How do you do it without making you go broke? And it's a hard thing to manage, but the difficulty of it, I don't think should be shied away from. Just because it's hard, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And again, when you're charging us the money that you're charging us within this hobby, you need to be putting some effort in Panini and Topps. And the process you have right now is not good enough for the amount of money these boxes cost. Panini $700,000 buyback, potentially. But judging Panini and knowing how they've moved in recent years, you're not going to get a response from them at all on this, which is really disappointing. that's the damage thing you need to remember is okay, maybe these immaculate cards themselves won't ever be bought, as I did say yesterday, because people know, right? People know that his cards from this set are tainted. It's the stickers that's the concerning part, that are unsigned. You can take that, use an auto pen, or even forge an auto for any single player, and you put it on maybe a card that had no auto on there, and you send it into PSA and they miss it, right? You don't get the auto graded, but they just happen to miss it. Or you do some other kind of hanky-panky where you put it on a fake card. You go to China, get a reproduction card that on the back says the auto is guaranteed by Panini. The fake is really good from China, as many of them are. You send it into PSA. PSA miss the fact that it's a fake. They don't look at the auto because the back of the card says Panini guarantees it. Next minute, that card's in a PSA holder. Next minute, a customer's been scammed by buying that online. That's the sort of danger point we're in with this, sticker stuff. And again, the fact that stickers can be so easily sent around, stolen, lost, all that sort of thing is wild for me. And they need to do a lot more than what they're doing right now to protect it. Yep, scrap them. I agree, obviously, because I made the point, but I think they do need to scrap them. You can't even get cards without print defects. They haven't changed or updated the technology again, and I don't think that's going to get any better. Unless Topps decide to bring in some innovation, but the way they're moving it doesn't look like it. This is definitely not the first time. We've seen it happen many times in the past. I think this is the first time we've seen it happen with this volume for one player. Basically, it's every card within that set, not to mention the number of sticker cards. But that's not the first time, and it won't be the last, unfortunately, because these businesses take the piss with how they approach things. They've said nothing about it. I don't think they will. 100% agree, Dan. Topps is much better. It's like choosing between Democrats and Republicans. They all suck. Everybody sucks. It's all one of those things where you just need to look out for yourself, look out for your family and friends, and then you'll be fine, right? Just do your best with everyone. Treat everyone with respect. Do whatever you can, and then you'll be fine within this hobby and in life in general. But to expect these businesses to be looking out for you when they're primarily only caring about their bottom line is a little bit naive. Thank you, Ziggy. I want to see this stuff too, but I want to see multiple manufacturers produce cards at the same time. I don't like the fact we have exclusive licenses, especially what we're seeing with Fanatics, where it's going to be whatever it is, 20, 25 years. It's just very disappointing. I'm going to skip ahead on the comments because I want to go to the next point. If you haven't seen the video, it's this one over here. Just to tie into the next point, I want to talk through the duplicates now because Topps came out yesterday with this buyback program. Now, I'm not sure if you guys can read it. It might be a little bit small, but I'm sure you've all seen it by now. The reason why this is interesting is because it's essentially what I called for when I spoke in this video over here about a second duplicate that showed up. So this is essentially only addressing the duplicate superfractors from Bowman Chrome 2023, where I talked in the video that there was actually a duplicate superfractor from the regular Bowman release, and it was an auto this time. i.e. a live auto was put into the product, but then also a redemption was in there for the same player as well. I believe it was Adley Rutschman, I believe is how you pronounce his name. And my suggestion for that was, okay, because one of them is live, one of them is a redemption, Topps should just, ignore the fact there's a redemption out there, not honor it, but try and give that customer some form of compensation, i.e. what they've done with this buyback program. And the reason for my suggestion on that was that they needed to, protect the integrity of the one of one, right? Because that's everything, right? The second you sort of allow two one of ones to be out there, it's not good enough. And Topps's suggestion with regards to that Bowman one of one superfractor duplicate was to give a photo variation of the card, i.e. make it the same card, just have a different image of the player. And in my opinion, that's not good enough, right? Because you're ruining the integrity of that one of one, right? A one of one is meant to be a one of one. Because you stuffed up, you shouldn't have two in there. And whilst when I first saw this buyback program, I thought it was really good, there's traces there to what I just touched on that I don't think is going to be good enough. I don't think they're doing enough to protect the integrity of the one of one. Now, for those of you that haven't seen this yet, essentially they have a deadline submission for March 31, 2024. And essentially what they are allowing is if you own one of the two duplicates, because they've found out that apparently they duplicated, this for 95 players. I'm shocked they've been able to find that out so quickly and so, confidently. But what they've basically said is that if you have, those cards, they're going to open up a buyback program with, set pricing that seems quite high. And if you basically get it first in, first serve, right? If you have both, you can only get the buyback for one of them. Or if you have if you have one of the superfractors and somebody else has one, whoever gets it in first is the one that gets this money, which is pretty wild. I think there's also, they're getting a replacement card. I think someone can correct me in the comments. But I just think this is an interesting one to go about it. So like I said, I think the buyback is good, right? Because you want to try and make sure there's only one of one out there. I just don't like the fact they've not opened it up to both persons. I just think it's a bit interesting now what this might be doing to the actual comps of those cards, right? It's just a weird one that now that I've had a bit more time to think about it, I'm not sure if this is, the answer. This is the way to go about it. I think it's cool that they've come out and been so transparent so quickly, right? Because like we just said, Panini have sort of shit the bed and dragged their feet with a lot of stuff that they've not said anything and we don't know what's happening. Yet it's good that Topps have come out and acted quickly on this, but that then raises a number of other questions, right? Was this intentional from them, right? We've seen some of these cards also sell for decent prices over the last few days. So how, quickly did this decision come from Topps, right? Was there an opportunity for people to buy these cards, with inside information, essentially? I had somebody message me and said that one of the cards I showed in my video on this topic, i.e. this one over here, had a prospect. I forget which prospect it was. I should have checked before coming on live. But they said that the price for that player sold for a ridiculous amount of money. It was sold for about $3,000 when it should have been at least half that. Now, I remember checking at the time when this was first announced that the buyback for that player is like twice as much within this thing. So was there inside information there? Did somebody know that they were going to come out and announce this? They went out and bought that card to do this? Maybe, maybe not, but it's just an interesting one that you need to sort of think through. And like similar to what I said about, maintaining the integrity of the one of one, right? It needs to be a one of one. And this is sort of making sure that there's only going to be one of them still out there. But is it tainted now? Because this buyback program is there and people have put the money in, is it tainted now? And it maybe is. So should Topps in that instance have basically said, you know what, we're going to open this up to both of you. If you both want to submit them, we're going to accept both of them. If you don't, you don't. But we feel that we should remove all the one of ones for the population for that year. Is that a good answer? Maybe not, but is that maybe better than what they did? I don't know. I'll leave that up to you guys to decide, because I just think it's just an interesting one. It's just very messy, and you can see here that the Jesus Gallas, I believe that's how you pronounce his surname, was already purchased. So it's pretty wild. I think the prices on here, you can see some of these are already pending. It's an interesting one. The inside information piece, was this planned for by Topps from the get-go to get a bit more buzz around their product? Again, you like to think no, but if it did, it's fraud. So it's just an interesting one, but I'm keen to get your guys' thoughts on that, because it's pretty wild in my opinion. I'll go through some of the comments now, but I'm keen to hear what you guys have to say on this one as well, because it's just messy. It's like, I don't think there's a good way to go about it. I don't think there's a perfect way to go about it. You need to sort of maintain that integrity, but then not dilute the product, but then also not taint it either. And I think maybe it's a bit tainted right now. I don't know. I'm talking in circles. You guys let me know what you think. No more one of ones. Make sure out of 50s there's a lower serial number, or other cards serial numbered in the thousands, like in the 90s. Like I've thought about that recently, actually. Like, I'm curious to see what people would actually do when it comes to the cards numbered out of 1,000, because when you look at some of the inserts we have now, like I talked to in my live stream 2 weeks ago with Jason, if you look at cards that are like greater than out of 99, as an example, across two products, you're talking about cards that are out of maybe 2,000 or 3,000, if you aggregate them all together. And when people look at it through the out of 99 lens, despite the fact that there's all those other ones that sort of aggregate with it, they're going to pay a premium for it. But if the card said out of 1,000, they probably wouldn't pay a premium for it, right? Even though technically they're both out of the same number, if you know what I'm trying to say here. It's pretty funny how that small change of perception on how something is presented just changes the amount of money that people are willing to pay. It's just very weird. Yeah, Panini could do the same thing, to be honest, and I think Panini have showed that over the last couple of years. 3K, one sold for 500 exactly. Can you remind me which player it was? Kiwi cards, because it's interesting whether that was based off inside information or not. Now again, who really knows? But it's just an interesting one. Two other players that are pending, as Raul did say here. But there's one thing that's pretty interesting here that Coach Co I saw earlier today. It looks like somebody purchased one of these cards, Rainer Arias, and we can find him over here. I believe it's, let me see if I can find it. Where is he? So his card worth 25 grand, right? So what Coach Co is basically saying is this card sold for 2 grand and it looks like it was stolen. I'm not sure by who. I haven't had a chance to look into this in detail yet, but that's the other mess that Topps have made here, right? Where somebody had a legitimate $2,000 sale here that they maybe won the card for, bought the card for. They're expecting the card to get delivered. They're now going to make 25 freaking grand off it. But either the person that was meant to ship it stole it, or somebody else got it along the way. And it's just another sort of interesting mess off the back of this whole thing. So I need more time to look into this. But again, talking about a card now, and some of these cards that are in fact sales being made that maybe some people now are going to do some hanky-panky, steal these things, not ship them, say they get lost in the mail, and then submit them. It's just crazy as well. Like that's a whole other added dimension here that I'm not even sure Topps thought through themselves, that people have opportunities here to steal and all that sort of thing. So keep an eye out for that, guys, because I think there's more to come of those kinds of stories as well. Exactly. So this is an interesting one. So you've got the backdoored cards, you've got the Randy Arozarena cards as well, basically with the fake orders, backdoored cards. And that was part of my story yesterday. If you do follow me on Instagram, it's good they've come out and talked about this, but it's convenient that they've not talked about the far more serious issues, right? Like I said, the backdoored cards, I can maybe find them now when I scroll through my page. These cards were stolen prior to, like 6 months before the product even released. And hardly anyone talked about it. I think one of the only people that talked about it that has a bigger following was Neo Cards and Comics, and he pointed people in the direction of my video. So I do, thank him for that. But you've got instances where you've had a significant issue like that, right? Cards get stolen before the release, right? They don't get included into the product either because these parallels are still missing. People are tracking them. They're not showing up, right? And they've not said anything about that yet. They come out and talk about this. And yes, it's a big deal. This is a big bloody problem as well to have duplicate one-of-ones, but that backdoor card, if Topps think this is a big issue, that backdoor issue is maybe 10 times worse because you've got it impacting so many more people, right? They're cards with fake autos on them that are being graded by PSA and PGS that are being sold for top dollar, and people don't know they were backdoored because nobody's talking about it apart from a select few. It's just crazy to me, and that's the stuff they need to comment on, and that's what I was calling for, in my story the other day. So that's pretty interesting, and there's something I want to share to that, which is why I think you've got less people pushing back against Fanatics, because like I opened with, I think Ruben and Fanatics are playing strong arm with some people here that they're partnered with to make sure they're not talking about it. So I'll talk to that in a second. They don't respond because it's strike 20. That's fair. Someone bought one of the supers on eBay and the seller recalled the package after finding out Topps put a 25k bounty on it, which is, I think, Patches, the one that I just talked to a little bit earlier. Ziggy saying hello to Raul. Apologies, my hand's moving a lot. I've got bad arthritis, so it's like killing me today. It's a complete mess. Sold 1500, Topps off at 25k. Again, another messy situation where I'm not sure if they factor that into the whole thing. It's just interesting. And like I said, when you're seeing these prices and it's like, okay, you've seen all the other buybacks they've got in place. Is this maybe a way for them to generate more buzz with their product? That's the proper tinfoil stuff. And that's the stuff, if I was auditing Fanatics, I'd be looking into, because that would be fraud. It's just a very, interesting situation. I feel like I'm saying interesting a lot, but you guys get the gist of what I'm saying. On purpose for tax write-off, very much possible. It's tainted. Yeah, they do, and it's just interesting. Like the other day, where you've got the buyback for the Babe Ruth card, right? And I said this in a story, right? This is how messed up the hobby is, where you've got so many people like Jeff Wilson, Sports Card Investor, a bunch of other, highly influential accounts promoting the fact that Topps has a buyback program in place for that Babe Ruth card, right? And it's a bounty, I should say, not a buyback, where, if that Babe Ruth card gets hit on Fanatics Live, they're going to give the person who hit the card extra money, right? Because DA Card would already have like a $250,000 bounty on that card, but they're going to give everyone, $1,000 in that break, and the person who hits the Babe Ruth Superfractor 10 grand or whatever it was. You've basically got, Fanatics, right, selling their product on their own live platform, right? So they're selling the product on their own live platform. They're making commission of every single one of those sales, and they're putting a bounty on there to entice people to use the platform. That is in definitely muddy waters when it comes to gambling enticement and regulations and all that kind of thing. You sort of got an instance where that card is a bounty from their product on their platform, likely to be hit by one of their breakers. Do you really think that card is not going to be hit on their platform? When you see all that sort of stuff, like I'd be shocked. I'd be so shocked if that card gets hit on, whatnot, as an example, if that card gets hit by somebody breaking on YouTube. You're almost guaranteed to see that card, that Babe Ruth card, get hit on Fanatics Live. And the fact that they can entice people with those, double dipping across the whole platform, right? They're selling the break of the box, they're then getting commission off every sale of that break, and they're now going to pay people to try and chase that product on their platform. Is that ethical? I don't think it is. So it's just an interesting one. That's just my opinion, but I don't think that's ethical at all. And it speaks to the significant issues we have within this hobby and where the mindset of these businesses are actually at. It's just crazy to me how that can be seen as something that's, okay to do. Yes, it's cool, right? It's cool to have bounties like that. But when you've got ownership across the whole value chain, that seems very dodgy. And that's where the risk occurs, right? When you're looking at that kind of thing as an auditor, right, you're looking through where the incentives might exist for, fraud to occur. And there's incentives across that whole value chain. If that Babe Ruth card is hit off of Fanatics Live, I'll eat my hat. And please don't hold me to that, because I don't want to eat my hat, but that's sort of how confident I am that's going to be hit on their platform. I want to know how they ended up in the product they didn't know this whole time. I call BS. Again, that is a very good question, because number one, how do you get 95 superfractors end up into a product? Okay, maybe they accidentally put 2 sheets through them, but I want to know how they knew so quickly that these cards were in their product, right? How do they so confidently say that 95 of these cards were in their product, right? When it comes to people saying they can't track cards in boxes and all that kind of thing, I don't really buy into that. I've said that before. Could they have done a look back and said, well, hang on a minute, the test sheet that we're meant to have, with the replacements for these 1-of-1s isn't around. Maybe we accidentally put it in. Sure, but they confidently said they know 95 are in there. So are they tracking this stuff? Was it meant to happen? Was it intentional? Who knows? But it's just pretty interesting. People rather buy 50K for an ultra-modern, unproven player than a vintage Hall of Famer. Hobby makes no sense. It never has, because that's been the case since I can remember. I remember saying the same sort of stuff in 2012, 2013. It's always been like that, unfortunately. Topps Gold are high numbered and they always are at a premium. I think they're out of 50, right? I think, or some of them are out of 25. Definitely out of 50 for the most part, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Some of the shorter printed stuff might be multiplied with other parallels, but you might as well have those that are 1-of-1 that isn't exactly like it. It's one of those things, right? I don't want people to be discouraged by seeing all this crap, right? Like, yeah, it's sort of, disappointing to see this stuff happen within the hobby, but the hobby's still fun, right? You can still collect cards, and you can approach things like the way that I do, where, I pay for my cards through profits from other cards, right? So I'm never paying money out of pocket. And that's really beneficial in situations like this, where you have modern product to be so shit, right? The QC is terrible, but I can sort of avoid getting scammed and getting screwed over, because technically I've not paid any of the money that goes to put food on the table for my family, right? So I'm lucky with that regard. And that's why when this stuff does come up and I talk about it, it doesn't make me, sad to participate within the hobby. I love collecting cards, love collecting things, but my approach to collecting means that when shit like this happens, I'm not impacted like some others are, which is what you guys need to also try and do, in my opinion. Don't be in too deep, I guess, with your card buying, because stuff like this can ruin it for you pretty quickly. And again, prospecting is just wild to me. It's always been like that. I'll never understand it. Yes, people are stupid. They'll pay 10K for a prospect. Yes, it's just so dumb. That's no one's fault, in my opinion. It's calm. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Ziggy. Maybe you can clarify down below. Apologies, I've missed some of the comments. I've said this before. Dealers flip amongst themselves and some rich idiot end user gets ripped off. I've talked to the example before, Roman Schaaf, who's got a big watch. He owns a really big third-party seller, I guess is the way you'd refer to it as, grey market seller. He sells watches, right? He's not an authorized dealer, but he sells watches. Similar to what you see flippers flipping sports cards. And the guy's got a very big business, been around for a long time. And the way he sort of explained the boom in the luxury watch space was basically what is said here, and what I've talked to many times in videos before, because you've got the same watch going back and forth between dealers, right? Constantly back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And they keep thinking they can, get a little bit more meat off the bone, right? Because there's a little bit more money there to be made, and they keep pushing the price up. And then you've got buyers buying this sort of stuff, but then eventually you're going to reach a point where you're trying to actually sell it to a collector, i.e. the end consumer, and they're not going to want to buy the watch. And you're seeing it happen within cards too, where you watch these card shows and you've got people like Roth Cards and other guys buying and flipping between each other, and they're literally flippers flipping to flippers. And it's like, well, who's going to pay those kinds of monies, right? And you need it to get in the hands of the collector at the end of the day, and it's not happening. And that's why you're seeing prices sort of get to where they have been, because, not enough collectors are owning these cards. And that's what makes me think that we could see further dips down the line, because you've got, so much of this unproven money, and people that are flipped to the point where they've owned these cards for expensive amounts of money don't want to now, sell them, because they're going to make too much of a loss. And it's just an interesting one. So if you guys do want to hear more on that, I can do another video on the topic. I just think it's pretty interesting how you've got not enough cards ending up in the collector's hands. And at the end of the day, we're the floor for this hobby, right? When all shit hits the fan, we're the ones that are going to be paying the price for that card, right? Because we actually care about the card. And I feel like so many cards are well above that actual floor price that it's just going to be pretty interesting to see how things transpire if that kind of trend does continue. If hit in a break, high chance breaker would not send the card, especially with Whatnot's money back crap. Yes, I agree. It's just crazy to me. I'd be shocked if it's not hit on Fanatics Live, and I'm keen to get your thoughts on that as well, and whether you agree with me on that or not. Indeed, I've said this before, ask Dan, until we get regulations, this is wild, wild west, no universal standards on grading. Tag is trying to change that, but people that have ton of, I think the rest of your comment, invest in PSA and SGC. It's just interesting because I don't, like, it is the Wild West. I don't want to say we need regulation. We don't need regulation. We just need self-regulation, right? Because you don't want the government's hands in here. You just need these businesses to do things how you expect them to, right? They're charging us a crap ton of money. Their processes internally need to match the amount of money they're charging us, and they're not doing it right now. And from, a technical perspective, as an auditor, right, their processes are clearly, dog shit, because we can see the mistakes they're making, right? And they're still stuck in the mindset of giving us a service from 5 to 10 years ago when the hobby was worth squat. It's worth a lot more money now, and they're not matching their internal policies and procedures with that, right? They're giving us crap value because they don't want to spend the money to uplift themselves. And just quickly, to go back to my screen, this was literally shared with me, right before I came online, and Mario Alejandro, or a baseball card blog, as I've referred to many times on this channel in the past, has broken a lot of these issues when it comes to these superfractor duplicates. He helped me with a lot of information with those backdoor tops cards. He called out, Fanatics when it came to that Antoine Griezmann break where they hit the 1-of-1 Jackie Robinson, if I remember correctly. And he was apparently partnered with Tops. And to give you some context as to where Fanatics might be trying to push the hobby down the line is, this guy was partnered. He came out and called them out with regards to this situation, right, where he talked about the fact that the Jackie Robinson was pulled in this. It's not a good look for Fanatics that they did this break with him and allowed this card to go to him as opposed to going to a collector, right? Because this was one of the chase cards within that set. And what he does talk to is that him putting out that tweeting and essentially putting some pressure back on Fanatics and Top, saying this is not good enough. They ceased their partnership with him effective immediately. So when you're seeing these backdoored cards and you're seeing these duplicate 1-of-1s and you're wondering why your favorite content creator might not be talking about it, this is the reason why. Because as he does say here, since you brought it up, Tops/Fanatics agreed to a sponsorship with me after 2 weeks, then backed out. And basically it was because he called out that Jackie Robinson cut signature debacle, as he does say here. And he does also say that Michael Rubin did in fact see the post, did in fact comment on it. So what does that mean for us as participants within this hobby when you've got content creators, signed up, right, to partnerships with Fanatics? You don't know about it because it's not always disclosed, and they're not talking about things, and they're too scared to talk about things because they know that something like this might happen to them. Or you maybe got Fanatics and Tops pressuring them to say, you know what, don't speak about this sort of stuff. I had Neo Cards and Comics and Sports Card Dad, I think I put out a video a couple of weeks ago, I forget which video it was, talking about influencers. I think it was this video over here, talking about influencers and how they're compromised because they're sponsored, right? The sponsors won't let them talk about it. And I think they both said, well, no sponsor has ever told me not to say anything. And that's fair, right? They may not have, but that doesn't mean they don't do it to others. And like, you've got a clear-cut example here. If we take this guy's word for it, Fanatics literally ceased the partnership with him because he came out and said this was not a good look for the hobby. He didn't come out and say you guys were frauds. He didn't come out and say you guys had a hotbox here. He basically said, if this is done for marketing purposes, I'm not happy with this. This should have gone to a local card store instead. Is that a bad thing to do, right? Is that something that, Fanatics and Tops should cease a partnership with? Like, they're free to do whatever it is they want, but you'd think it would be something a bit more heinous than that in order to cease a partnership, right? If you're simply saying, this is not a good look, should you have done this? Or is it a hotbox? Because he does say he magically pulled a 1-on-1 Jackie Robinson. Like, maybe you could have gone to Tops and Fanatics and spoke to them first. But again, if they're going to try and silence people like that, is that a good thing? What does that mean for, the rest of the stuff that you see happen within this industry? What does that mean for, why other content creators are maybe not talking about these issues with Fanatics and Tops? Because if they're doing it here, they're doing it elsewhere. And in my opinion, is not a good look. And I'm keen, again, to get your thoughts on that, because it's very annoying. And again, I almost said interesting again, but I just saw your comment, Bob. I'm sorry, I can't stop saying it. I've got ADHD, so sometimes I get in the habit of saying the same word over and over again. So please forgive me. I'm not going to talk to that one, Patches, but you can do whatever you want with there. Bob Boozled again, Ruben will be frozen. Again, I'm not sure what his interests are, but it is, again, an interesting one. I'll keep saying that word for you, Bob. But it's just pretty wild how you've got, a simple question being asked and they're ceasing a partnership off the back of it. It's like, what do you think is going to happen when you ask the actual tough questions around the backdoored cards, right? I can't emphasize how much I pushed to try and get a response from Tops on that. Card porn themselves, the scammer themselves, even tried to help me by putting up my video and sharing it, and we got no response, right? And it's just really disappointing. And it's like, well, if they're controlling the narrative that much, that should scare the shit out of us moving forward, because they're going to have full control. They're going to do what they want, when they want, how they want, and they don't have anyone to hold them accountable, right? Not until they get listed or go ahead with their IPO, which is pretty crazy. I don't want to bet. I'm not a betting man. I'm too much of a degenerate for that. But we can talk through in the DMs if you want around what we can do, maybe something for charity or something. But I'd be shocked if it's not a Fanatics Live, in my opinion. It is another shit show. I think it's doing a little bit better than Whatnot because they've established a few things there, but it does have a lot to work on as well, because you're getting some dodgy things happening there as well. Just scrolling down to see if anyone has any comments around the thing that I just showed on my screen. Give me a sec. And that's a good question there. So RM Richard Mill, which is like the one that these wealthy dudes chase at the moment, like plastic watches, basically pretty cool, machinery within them. But there you go. They were basically retailing for $500,000, but now selling for nowhere near that. I think one of the few markets that's still up is Rolex and AP and things like that. But it's wild to sort of see the trend, the parallels, I should say, between the watch space and the sports card space, because you've got similar people doing similar things, pushing prices up, but not actually caring about what it is they own. And then it's the poor collector at the end of the day that sort of gets burned. I'm not sure who you're referring to there, Warlock. My thing is, Michael Rubin says he wants 10 times the hobby. This is the wrong way to do it. But I think at the moment they're going about it the way they want to, right? And like I've said, I'm a dead horse now, betting a dead horse, where you've had all these things they've done, parallels, redemptions basically going away. They've done more of both, missing prospects out of product that they then replace later on. You've had that that planetary insert, I forget what it's referred to as, someone can mention it below, but you had one of the planets basically go missing, but then you had duplicates for the other planets for inserts for players. You've had the backdoor cards, you've had these duplicate one-of-ones. It's like drop ball after drop ball. It's a fumble after a fumble, right? It's just, what are they doing? Like, are they going to get better when they've got more things to work through? I don't actually know. Let me see if I can find a few comments. And again, that's a concern for Murray. I don't think he disclosed it. Maybe he did. I can ask him on that. He's pretty transparent with a lot of things, and I'll ask him about that. But it is an interesting one. Again, people don't disclose things, which is again something that's very concerning for me, especially with content creators, especially with people that are pushing ads within their video that you don't know are ads, and they're telling you to use a certain service, and you're trusting them because you like them. But meanwhile, they're getting paid to say that. And because you don't know they're paid for, right? You don't know they have a partnership. You don't know if they're saying that because they believe in what they're saying, or they're just saying it because they get paid, which is why we need freaking transparency. And anyone that tells you otherwise should go eat a dick, basically. Tops need to let people have opinions on the product. Sponsorship should not mean silence. And I agree. And I've also said this before within this hobby in my videos, right? You've got content creators in this space, and you don't really see it happen as much elsewhere, where they basically drop to their knees for these sponsors, and they'll basically say anything they want them to, and they'll talk to things and they'll praise them, not realizing that, you as a content creator have a voice, right? You are the one that has the power. They've come to you for a reason to align. And yes, some of the smaller channels might find this a bit hard, because if they push back and they say, you know what, I'm not going to say that, they'll lose the sponsorship, but so be it. But the problem with these smaller ones is they rely on that income for many different things, right? So they're sort of bound by their wallets. But these more influential guys, these guys that are in fact millionaires or have $1 million card collections that still bend over, for their sponsors, is very disappointing to see, because they don't need to. You're influential in this space. If you have a few 100,000, subscribers, and you're getting that many viewers watching your videos, right? And a sponsor does something bad that you don't like, and you've talked to them and they've basically told you to shut the F up, you can call them out and put pressure on them. Do you really think people are not going to, take pride in what you've done there, or like the fact that you've done that? The business would basically buckle then and say, okay, we stuffed up, we need to do something, right? You as the content creator have the power. They forget that, which is disappointing. And again, I'm rambling now, so I do apologize. It is BS. The problem is Fanatics thinks the cards are worth more than they are, i.e. buyback figures compared to eBay sales, so the gambling aspect doesn't work because you don't get real money in return. Again, very, very fair. You got Warlock here. I got Fire Hands. To do so, Raul, he was pissed. I called him out and he said, oh, every breaker trying to get sponsored. His response was yes, so no thought about customers. I need to go back and read your comment, Waller, because I'm not sure what you mean on the context of that situation, but we just need these guys to be transparent. It's not that difficult. I'm not hating on people for having a sponsor or anything like that. You just need to be transparent and be open and honest. And if you see something, right, and you're too scared to call it up because you're sponsored, then maybe you shouldn't be sponsored in the first place. Give me 1 sec. Speaking of sponsors, if Pepsi Max want to sponsor me, I'm all these guys, because I drink that shit like it's air, basically. I go through way too much of that stuff. Babe Ruth will definitely be on Fanatics Live, but all these one-on-ones of other players will get broken on other platforms as well. Breakers will see buyback dollars and say, yes, we sent it out, but don't. Again, I would not be shocked to see that, unfortunately. It's sad to say, but it is what it is. I called out Mojo Sports in a live stream, and he read the comment and ignored it. He had an interesting situation. I'm pretty sure if Raul is still here, maybe he can clarify, but I'm pretty sure Mojo had a box that was given to him by a sponsor, may have been by Fanatics, that he said he bought himself, when in fact it was given to him. So maybe you can confirm that for me, Raul. But again, that's part of the problem, right? And he only came out and clarified it after he got pushed back. So these guys are just, half these guys are clowns. I'm sure they're nice people, but they do dumb shit like that. And it's like, why? Nobody cares that you sponsored, mate. Nobody cares that you sponsored. You're trying to make money, go for it. Make your bag, but don't let it cloud your judgment. Don't do dumb shit off the back of it. I mentioned that last week. They signed a code of conduct, so literally cannot speak out, or they'll have their access pulled. Yeah, very good point. I remember reading your comment, and I was meant to talk about it in another video, but forgot. If you go back to the T's and C's that breakers now have to sign, the same thing with local card stores, it basically limits what they can and can't do when it comes to Topps product, but also what they can and can't say about the product either. So they're obviously doing it with their, sponsored, people as well, which goes to why these people are maybe not talking about it. And I don't need to name the names, but there's at least 5 to 10 that I can think of that I'm sure you guys can too, that have not really talked about this buyback situation or this duplicate situation until the buyback stuff occurred, which is, again, all you need to know. And these guys that do talk about it in these videos always play freaking games about tinfoil hat stuff and just asking questions and all this kind of thing. But it's like, guys, like, pull your finger at your ass, please. Caught a small breaker out and he threatened to dox me. Haha, uploaded some videos to help him. Again, you should let him dox you, because then you could have sued the shit out of him. So people like that are absolute dickheads. It's now up to the fans to speak up, and Fanatics knows few have access to enough people to make a difference, which is really disappointing. And that's, part of the reason why I do the content that I do, because I want to call that stuff out. But the disappointing thing is that even if it's fair and balanced, they shy away from it and they don't appear to want to be talking about it, which again doesn't fill me with a whole lot of confidence about what's sort of happening long term within this hobby. Because, okay, like if this, stuff happened that I'll bring on screen again now, like this happened, obviously, who really cares that you made this mistake? I guess it's a big problem, but Topps had to come out and basically say, we'll fix it. So this statement from them, I think, is a really good thing, because they've come out and been transparent and communicated it. They need to then also follow through and say, well, this is what we've done to make sure this doesn't happen again. They need to talk to that piece as well. But it's just weird how they sort of pick and choose what it is they do want to talk to and don't want to talk to, which then doesn't give me the confidence that, they're doing things for the right reasons and all that kind of thing. Like, mistakes happen. People understand that. It's not the end of the fucking world, right? Mistakes happen. But just, come out and be transparent, communicate it, and do it all the time. Be transparent across the whole process, not selective picking and choosing of what it is you do want to talk to. And that's where the problem is, in my opinion. Apparently there's lots of 2 out of 1s out there. Yes, very much indeed. I'm not sure what that comment was referring to. The continued market policy of shut up and like it, agree, which is really disappointing. And agree, Ziki. They don't say things because they want sponsors. Selling out is not censorship. And there's like ways to approach it. Like I said, there's plenty of content creators out there that are sponsored, that are not compromised by the fact they're sponsored. It's just something that needs to be done better. And it's disappointing, but it is what it is. Dan wants Bob's wife to sit on Ruben, and it'll have 26 interestings in a row. Was that a typo, or did I read that wrong? Thanks for your time tonight, Dan. Thanks for joining. I appreciate everyone being here. I'd rather have questions that can't be answered over answers that can't be questioned. Exactly. Neo is selected because his channel is a business as bad as he does what's in the best interest. Is that what the BD was meant to be for? Which is fair, but you are impartial when you're open for business. Fair. Like, I think Neo does a good job, in my opinion. Like, he does call out a lot of this stuff as well. He's just a bit more restrained when it comes to commenting on things. He likes to wait for things to brew. But he's called out plenty of stuff as well, so he deserves a pat on the back for that. And when he hasn't, he's always pointed people in the direction of myself, Sports Card Radio, RH Sports, anyone else within this space. I think even yourself, Ziggy. It's just others that are not doing that at all, right? Or they'll basically point the finger at these people for being tinfoil guys, and then when they get their retribution or vindication, they then don't point the finger back and say good job, right? So many people avoid that kind of thing. Dead horses need to be beaten. I agree. The planetary pursuit, that's the insert that I was referring to, where some of the planets were basically missing from the product, and it looks like they know about it, but are not talking about it. Replying to Ziggy, unrelated to this subject, but what are you looking forward to most for the hobby hangout, and what are you looking for? Anything to pick up at the show? So that's a card show here in Sydney this time next week. I don't think I'm looking to buy anything in particular. You can see over there, I've got a bunch of flawless soccer cards that I've been chasing lately, so I might keep an eye out for those. But things here in Australia, as you know, mate, are pretty expensive, so I probably won't be buying too much there unless something catches my eye. But in terms of what I'm looking forward to the most, it will be the fact that I am speaking on stage. So I'm not sure what the topics are just yet, but I'll be on stage for about 45 minutes with the likes of Tyson Beck, who does those really cool play-out custom cards with autos, really cool cards, and then a few other people from the Australian scene. So if you're going to be there, come say hi, and I'm happy to have a chat. You already know I boycotted Fanatics months ago. I essentially boycott everything. I just buy what I like, and like I said a bit earlier, fund it through profits. So I just try and have fun within this hobby. In that case, I want to beat Kenny Boy Golden on his 9 acres on a golf course. Something tells me Ken is very good at golf, so you might have met your match there. Got Patches and Bob having some good chin wags between each other. The print runs on those planetary pursuits don't add up either. The rare one have been printed more than the common ones. I think that's what I was referring to a little bit earlier, where you've got, apologies for the hiccups, you've got cards sort of all over the place and sort of parallels missing, all that sort of thing. Content creators aren't always going to talk about these things, and again, they're not expected to either, right? People can approach their content how they want, right? Not everyone needs to talk about news or things like this, but it's just one of those things where I like to think that if you're sponsored by Fanatics or Tops, right, or you've been partnered with them in some capacity in the past, and you've seen something like this, you probably have an obligation to your viewers to at least ask the question, especially if you're going to be taking money from these people, but then also praising their product at the same sort of time, right? These are serious questions that need to be asked, and they're not often always asked, which is disappointing. Sports Card Radio is very kind to Fanatics and defends them, just saying money talks. I'm not sure if they're paid for or not. That's a question for them. But again, if they are, right? They can approach their content how they want. But it's just interesting because they've basically praised Fanatics a lot lately, but that's sort of how they've approached things, right? Because they're really anti-Panini, because Panini have shit the bed over the last few years. So maybe it's just that. Who knows? If you think they're paid for, maybe ask them the question. I think one popular content creator is on Fanatics payroll, but under one of the other collector entities to skirt FTC rules on sponsors. I'm keen to chat with you on that one in the DMs, Patches, because I'm keen to hear more on that. Breaking is technically not gambling. It's no different than a store opening a box and letting people buy packs individually. Sure, but the gambling aspect from breaking comes with the way the product is pushed, right? Where you've got, minis and maxes, you've got other things being run to entice people to buy the product. You've got the ability to sort of interact so quickly from your phone and all that kind of thing, and the games associated with it. I think it's one of those things that if you were to put this in front of somebody within the government from a gambling regulatory perspective, you would have walked them through the process, I would be shocked if they got to the end of it and said, this is not gambling, right? I think if they understood it completely, they'd say it was gambling. And I think Fanatics is actually banking on that, which is why they've set up Fanatics Live the way they have. Because the second they get listed, right, they want to go ahead with this IPO. They want to be listed on the stock exchange. The second that happens, Fanatics Live is then going to be subject to, US reporting, PCAB reporting requirements, which is a reporting requirement from an accounting perspective, right? They need to prepare certain policies and procedures to make sure their financial statements are free from error. And when they get listed, that becomes mandatory. And because that's mandatory, it means Fanatics Live needs to be taken, very seriously with their internal processes and all that kind of stuff. That's a bit of a rant right there from a technical accounting perspective. I won't go into too much detail because I'll bore you guys, but that's the way, things will go. They'll be forced to do it, is the point I'm trying to make. Chris C, that's because SCR are lying hypocrites. I think you should have a chat with them. Maybe ask them that question next time they do a live stream. Bobby, 2 pops breaks. That is the laws breakers operate under unless they declare buying packs gambling, breaking. I disagree on that piece. I still stand by the fact that the process in which the products are sold, the way they're pushed to people, the way they interact with on the platforms and on the websites, it doesn't work the same way as just buying packs does. And I think you'll find that in maybe a year's time, you'll find that I'm probably proven right on that, which is not something I'm looking forward to, but it is what it is. I'm really far behind on the chat, guys. Looks like I'm 10 minutes behind, so I'll try and catch up. The buyback prices are spot on. Gambling and Fanatics knows this. Again, that's why I just said I think they're working towards what they are, and I'm not behind in chat, so you guys have probably already mentioned that. Pepsi Max crew, I go through so much Pepsi Max, I'm ashamed to tell you how much Pepsi Max I go through, so I'm not going to tell you. Ruben Soddy's share of the 76ers due to getting into the gambling sphere, agree. Well, obviously, I think he's come out and said that, so I don't know why I said I agree. Agree, Dan. Veriswap is a terrible business idea. Arena terrible, but they push it. Some don't even use what they push exactly, or they push it and don't tell you they're aligned to it, and then they get grumpy when you ask them about it. I can explain on one of Roll's vids. Firehands came at me. I fired back and told him what I thought of him, and he didn't like it. I got him to confess basically that he was sponsored to open. I think you're saying he's basically sponsored. I'm happy to chat with you on that in the DMs, because I chat to Firehand cards, once a blue moon. And I think seems to be a nice guy, right? Based on what I do know, and he's talked about a few things that other breakers won't, which I do like. But I'm keen to chat to you on that one. 2 days, not 32. Getting product ahead of schedule. Okay, that makes sense. Mojo's Monopoly box, the Monopoly Prism stuff, I think, is what Roll is saying. I'm really far behind, guys. Let me try and catch up. Oh, do they? Wow, mate, I'm addicted to Pepsi Max, so I don't worry about all that other crap. I just live my life, do things right by people, and hope everyone does things right by me as well. So that's all I can ask for in life. ComC and SGC getting pumped by influencers is a little annoying. There is a place for both those companies, but you have to be smart how you use them or how they will take your money. What's pretty funny is that some people that push ComC have had videos, and they've been pushing ComC for a long time, but they've only recently started making videos about the fact that they use ComC, which is pretty funny how you get guys that are sort of sponsored that don't actually understand the product they're pushing, and they just push it anyway. Now, I'm not going to name names, but it's just funny how you do see that stuff pop up every now and then. It's pretty obvious too when you've got guys pushing an auction service that have never used that auction before in their life, or they actually don't know too much about cards, but they like to pretend they do. Speaking on stage, imagine everyone is nude to reduce stress. That might make me a bit more excited though, so that might not be a good idea. I'm just hoping people don't throw fucking fruit at me or something. So we'll see. I don't have too many enemies, so hopefully I'm okay. One guy had around 850 young guns on EPAC, and a lot of big names traded him a McDavid patch auto and sold them for 8 times the McDavid. I'm not sure who was that relating to, Patches. I probably missed the earlier comments, so I do apologize. So you have what I'm saying. Yeah, there's anything wrong with buying into breaks or anything like that, or having fun with this. I just find it funny how people sort of get so turned off with these businesses that they get turned off on buying cards. There's still plenty of ways to have fun and buy into stuff. It's not the end of the world if you do. I know some people basically say, well, this business sucks, you shouldn't be buying anything from them. Yes, that's how we should be with some of these businesses, but unfortunately, that's not how the world works. No one's going to stop using them. So it's one of those things where protect yourself, like I said, buy and use money that you've basically made from profits, so you're not buying into things with your own money, so then you get scammed by some of these backdoored cards or fake cards. It's just one of the things you need to be extra careful. Just don't imagine only the old fat dudes naked. Well, it's a card show, right? So everyone's old and fat, unfortunately. But it is what it is. That's why I'd rather have a pack pulled card instead of buying this, the hobby we're in right now. It is what it is, but like I said, if you just approach things like the way I do, you spend money via profits, you're not really spending anything. If something turns out to be a scam or fake, you've really not lost any money, so it is what it is. Dan getting invited to the Industry Summit 2024. I think the only reason... If I got invited to the Industry Summit, I don't think I'd be leaving the Industry Summit, if you know what I mean. I think this is pretty interesting. The Industry Summit, I would like to attend something like that in the States, because I think there's a lot of people that I want to meet and interact with. In particular, there's a lot of cards that I like to freaking buy over there, because they seem to be some pretty good deals at your shows in the States. But more importantly, the cards they hand out at these shows are also pretty good. So it would be nice, but I don't think I'd make it out of there alive based on some of the things I've said about certain people, so it is what it is. eBay should be checking what sellers have bought too many cards with print lines on there without anyone disclosing it. I think that's what their authenticity guarantee is trying to do. I've seen people get cards rejected because of print lines and stuff like that not being disclosed, but it is what it is. It's never going to be perfect, unfortunately. It's just one of those things where you need to have trust, and unfortunately too many people are scamming at the moment. Webwipes can't SCR ban him. I think he was the one they banned the other day, right? Or a couple of weeks ago. They went wild in the chat, if I remember correctly. If you want gem mint cards, buy PSA 10s. Yeah, because people will pay top dollar for them, but as we've seen, they're not always gem mint cards, unfortunately. Collectors started breaking of a boxer case. I think I missed some of the conversation there as well, Ziggy. Yeah, breakers have turned opening a box with shared costs into gambling. I agree. And it's one of those ones where you've sort of got people that sort of started it off. Okay, yes, there's always bad actors, right? But the guys that maybe first started approach things in a good way, right? They were looking after their customers and all that sort of thing. But now anyone can be a breaker, right? I've talked this before. The barrier to entry to be a breaker is so freaking small, so easy that you get so many dickheads in there ruining it for the guys that are actually doing a good job. And as I talked to when it came to Whatnot and Fanatics Live had a big problem because if they didn't sort out the fact that you had so many dickheads jumping on and scamming people, they're opening themselves up. It's an open invitation to a regulator to come in and shit on the whole industry, which then costs so many people so much money. It ruins it for everyone. And that's sort of where we're heading, primarily because of all the dickheads that are scamming people, but then also the people that are just so quick to spend money because they don't give a shit, because they want the card. They're degenerates like I am as a gambler. They want it and they want to make that quick flip, right? Everyone's thinking with their pocket instead of with their head. And this is what it is. It's where we're ending up now, where you've got breaking basically being looked at the way it has. And it's essentially, the breaking is legitimately the wild, wild west at the moment, which is disappointing to see. I've come to understand that 99% of collectors are just gamblers, Dan. I think that's the way it is right now. For the most part, on social media, that's probably a fair number. I'm sure if you go to card shows and things like that, there are many more people in this hobby that don't even jump on social media. But the way it's sort of heading right now, it certainly looks the case, which is disappointing. And again, I definitely agree with you on this. I think repacks are a scam. They are fraud for the vast majority of them. And there's a few tells you can do. Like, I think checklists go a long way, as I've said before. But again, repacks for the most part are a scam, which is disappointing. And I think, 95% of them are a scam. And it's like everyone's doing them these days, and they won't sell you they won't sell you all the packs. They won't tell you, I should say, which cards are in there. They don't tell you what the checklist is. It's just a mess. Like, there's a big hobby store here in Australia that do really good repacks. They don't tell you what's in them. They don't tell you the checklist. And what I don't understand with these, card stores all around the world and these dealers that do them is they know what's in there in order to price the bloody product, right? Because they have to comp out all the cards and they have to work out what's the cheapest amount they can sell this repack for by still making a profit. So they know what's in there, but they don't fucking tell you. And apologies for swearing, but it's that serious. Why don't they tell you? That's the question you need to ask yourself. And the reason why they don't want to tell you is because they want to scam you, unfortunately. I just don't understand why they don't do it, other than that reason. Maybe there's a legitimate reason that I'm not thinking of right now, but that's the only one I can think of. If Fanatics isn't going to give breakers or shops terms and get more sales data for a year prior, they will own the cases and boxes and pay each breaker a commission to break them live. I think that's what they're working towards, right? They want that to happen. They want that double dip happening by selling the box and then also making the commission, which is only going to do more to push boxes pricing up, unless Fanatics come out and say, if you want to sell break spots in this product, you can only do them by team or player, and you can only charge this amount of money. Maybe that's what they're doing, and they're going to try and set a ceiling on them. But I'm curious to see what that would mean for free market and all that kind of thing. SCR is very much like Neo, selective, good for the hobby. I don't know. I think is that a fair statement? I'm not sure. That's your opinion, obviously, but I think they've just maybe got bored of talking about some of the things they've talked to. I'm not sure. I'm keen to get what people's thoughts are on that and whether they agree. But I just think maybe they're getting bored of talking about all the same shit over and over again, and they just want to approach things differently now, or only talk to certain things, or maybe they're sponsored. We'll never know. But again, as I've said before, even if they are sponsored, right? Even if they are sponsored, they've told us consistently over the last 2 years that they would take a bag, right? They've told us they'd happily get paid from any of these businesses to praise them, right? So we don't have any confirmation that has happened. But if that has happened, can you actually hate them for that? Because they've told us they'd do it. So it is what it is. And if you watch them for a long time, they're about the entertainment. They like shitting on people. They like calling out things from a certain perspective. They like, the entertainment aspect of it, right? And they've talked to that before. They sort of play a character when they're shitting on people sometimes. Obviously, they'll call out scams and all that kind of thing and believe what they're saying, but they'll ramp it up a little bit to get the buzz going. And they've talked to that before. So, with that in mind, with the fact they're entertainers, the fact they've come out and said they'd happily get paid and take the money, why are people shocked that if they have done that, they've done it, right? Why would you be shocked? And I just find that funny how people do get shocked about that piece when they've told us to our face they would do it. It's like, if they are, they are. If they're not, they're not. It is what it is. Warlock, and if you think sports cards are bad, Pokemon Holy, exactly. The whole Pokemon piece is like so much worse than what's happening in sports cards from a scamming perspective, and it's wild because their product is a lot more affordable and it's not as scarce either. It's a lot more readily available, and you see the scams that happen in that space, and it's just crazy. And like I said, Rattle Pokemon does a fantastic job talking about it. Opossum does as well. I'm sure there's a few others, but it's just crazy. That's me. I dumped all my Panini cards and about to dump my modern tops. I don't think you need to dump them, to be honest. If you like collecting them, collect them. Who gives a shit? Like, don't let all this stuff get you guys upset. Like, don't let this impact you, right? Collecting cards is fun. If you approach your collecting sensibly and you're not spending money that you shouldn't be, and you're comfortable losing the money you're spending, you can have fun in this hobby. Just ignore all this other bullshit. Just call it out when you do, in fact, see it. I have lots of fun chatting, coming up with hot takes in the hobby. I do recall you now seeing in a number of those sports card radio streams. I don't participate too much in their chat anymore because it is in the middle of my workday, but it is what it is. I've been using ComC for 6 years, and yes, most are new to it, like Neo, Dustin, and Dakota. I sell to sometimes fun stuff I like, don't always have to overspend. I basically sell to fund everything, and I have a one-in, one-out rule now as well with my collection. Every buy of the big cards already got their tax breaks. That's why they overpay with inflation on the horizon. I had someone else tell me recently that a lot of the big content creators in the Pokemon space are buying a lot of their cards on credit cards, and apparently it's a really known thing. And I think it's pretty, safe to say the same thing's happening in the sports card space for sure. So the current interest rate environment that we're within, or that we are in, I should say, might mean we see a lot of dumping happening over the next 6 to 12 months. Maybe we haven't even seen the start of the decline just yet. So sort of interesting one to keep an eye on. What are the top 3 sports for collectors in Australia? I think NBA is number 1. Maybe people can confirm down below. Like we have the Aussie sports, obviously. So you have Australian rules football, the AFL, and then rugby league, which are the 2 big local sports. But excluding those, I'd probably say it's probably NBA, soccer, and then maybe NFL would be the 3 big ones. And again, that's not based on any numbers or anything like that. It's just based off what I see around the Facebook pages and all that sort of stuff, and what kind of things people like to sell at shows. I agree. Will Greer is about 4 times better buy than 2023 Bowman Baseball. I think it's a lot more than 4 times better buy, actually. Dan, a lot of those dudes are full of hot air. Rattle actually interviewed a known scammer, and they had a very interesting discussion. Sides, most of us, like you, Dan, we'd watch out for you. I'm not sure what you mean there, but let's have a chat in the DMs. If you mean there's, guys with nefarious backgrounds in the hobby, that's nothing really new. Listen, I don't think someone's going to get their hands dirty and commit a crime for a guy with 4,000 subscribers, right? I don't think that's going to happen. Another comment here from Warlock. Sports card dad claps back at me, especially after I asked him when he was going to stop doing whatnot shout outs. It's one of those things, like whatnot in principle is a good business, right? Like it's a good idea being able to shop the way you can from that app, but I'm fairly certain Dustin has called them out before. Maybe he hasn't. If I'm wrong, let me know, but the problem comes, like I said, where you've got all those scams happening on that platform and they're not saying anything about it. That's the problem. And I'm pretty sure Dustin has called them out before, so I'm not sure if that holds strong. But again, I could be wrong. You just reminded me, Ziggy, I've got to talk to the Shy thing in a sec. Just give me 1 sec and then we'll talk to that as well, because that was on my list, but I forgot to bring it up. Because that's an interesting one. Just quickly here, you got another comment from Patches. Would be afraid to send in my 68 Tops Mantle 10 to get reslabbed. It was graded 10 plus years ago. It is probably a 7 due to their new rules. Can't you just get it crossed over to the new slab? You don't need to have it regraded, right? Or do they mandate you getting a regrade now? Got the great man, John Vito. Glad I caught a little bit of a live, Danny. You're an asset to the sports card hobby, brother. Thank you, and I appreciate your kind words. Always appreciate you jumping into my DMs as well. Always a good chat. But this is a good thing to talk to. So I'll get to that in a second. Let me just catch up on the comments and then we'll jump into it, because I am really far behind and I feel like Dustin right now, and that's not good because I give Dustin so much shit for that because I hate being behind in the comments. So I might skip a few in a sec, but just bear with me, guys. Grading is a joke. They literally pay people minimum wage, and agree. Like, that's another process, similar to what I said about, Tops and Panini, about signing sessions and having to uplift their processes to make sure that cards don't get stolen, right? These graders need to do more to make sure that these entry-level employees that they're paying $10 an hour for, $15 an hour for, $20 an hour, are doing shit the way they should be doing it. It's just weird to me how you can have that much inconsistency happen within your business and sort of ignore it, right? They're pumping out 1 million cards a week, but they're nowhere near as consistent as they should be. And the fact that that's seen as okay is not good enough, in my opinion. Do you honestly think you're getting your money's worth? I'm not saying spend hours looking at one card, but 10-second average, hard pass yet, probably not. We've got the great man himself, All135. Is there any Australian news on one and or card porn? Literally nothing. It's gone silent. I've tried chasing multiple people and I've not got an answer on this at all. I'm very tempted to fly down to Melbourne to go knock on his house to see if he's in fact there, but something tells me is either not going to be there or I'll get freaking shot or worse. So that's still on the agenda potentially, but we just need to wait to see how things play out over the next week or two with work. But I've literally heard nothing, and that is a little bit concerning as well. How quickly that news basically stopped. It literally stopped. Like, I can't click because I've got bad arthritis in this hand, but it was like that. Essentially stopped dead in the night, in the sense that nobody continued to talk about it. I couldn't get an answer from anybody. I feel like something's up in the background. Maybe there's already a lawsuit or something going on that we don't know about. But there's definitely something happening there that caused everyone to basically zip their lips all up at the same time, which is, again, one to keep an eye on. Let me see if there's a few other comments to click through because I will basically try and catch up. Great show, thumbs up. Thanks, Ziggy. I do apologize if I've skipped any questions. If there's any question you asked that I have skipped, please do let me know. It is, I'm just reading a few comments. Sorry, guys. So if there's a question you want me to ask or talk to, I should say, I'm an idiot. If there's a question you want me to talk to, drop it down now because I've just skipped through maybe the last 5 minutes to catch up to the next topic, but we can get to those in a second. But the last thing I want to talk to is this Shy Wave Vlogs situation. Now, this guy came out and admitted to the fact that he shillbid, and it was essentially caught by this guy known as Mustard's Cards on Blowout because he saw that Shy, or Shay, I believe is how you pronounce his name, one of the two, essentially bought some cards and those cards got listed for consignment, and he somehow figured out which eBay account this guy owned, and then basically stumbled upon the fact that this guy was bidding on his own cards. And it's an interesting one. Now, some people have asked me to make a comment on this. I'm not going to put out a video shitting on this guy, and some of you might say, well, why not? If you look at some of his stories, he's basically talked to the fact that he's going through a really hard time right now. Now, that could be a sob story, sure, right? He could just be saying that, but I would rather, not talk about it and not shit on this guy specifically than him do something to himself off the back of, social media pressure. The guy's admitted to shill bidding, right? He's basically lost his business partnership with Fund Your Cards, and some other things that he had going on with sponsors and all that kind of thing. So it's just one of those things where we know shill bidding's occurred. He's admitted to it. I think we just need to move on. I don't think we get anything by shitting on this guy, putting him down, especially when he's come out and said that he's going through a few difficult things. And he's mentioned those in his stories. And I think a few people have shared over here, and a few other stories that he's since deleted as well. So it's just one of those things where I can talk to shill bidding if you guys want me to, but I'm not going to put out a video basically shitting on this guy and pressuring him and all that kind of thing, because the last thing I want is this guy to harm himself or anything like that. Now, again, could he be lying about how he was feeling? Sure, but I'd rather not run the risk, especially when the guy's come out and admitted to the fact that he shill bid, because what more do we need out of it then? I don't think anyone's going to deal with him again. And then obviously if he tries to get back into the hobby and get to a power of influence like he did have, then we can call this stuff out again. But we've got no reason to, when he's lost the amount of money that he's probably lost. He's lost the partnerships, he's lost the fun, and he's probably dealing with a shit ton of stress in his personal life. It's not worth shitting on him, in my opinion, but I'm keen to get your thoughts on that. What I did find very interesting was when I did speak to him, he made reference to a Jeremy Lee live that I think he also talked to in his stories that he since deleted, because in his video, Jeremy basically said, well, so Jeremy Lee basically he didn't encourage shill bidding at all, right? And I think that's what Shay was trying to imply, but Jeremy was very much against shill bidding, right? And he talked to how it's deceiving, it's fraud. You deserve to go to jail if you basically get caught for that kind of thing, right? Because it's fraud, right? Fraud is fraud. But what Jeremy did basically say was, well, if I own a card, right? Let's say I own a gold prism, right? And I've got 5 of the 10 of Tom Brady first year gold prism, and I see a 6-1 get listed on eBay, right? And that 6-1 is selling for what I think is underpriced. is it shill bidding if I want to try and bid that price up, and then if I get the winning amount, I do buy it and then I keep it? That's the thing that Jeremy was trying to talk to, and Shay tried to make it out like that's what he was doing. But what Shay was doing was he was bidding on his own cards, and then he probably wasn't paying either. That's the problem, right? That's shill bidding. You trying to corner a market by buying all the cards and bidding the prices up, and then if you do happen to win it, you win it and you pay for it. That's not shill bidding, and that was the example that Jeremy gave in his video, and it was just interesting to see that Shay tried to convolute it or make it out like it was the same thing. It's not the same thing, and I just wanted to clarify that because Jeremy got pulled into a few things, and there's other things to maybe call out Jeremy Lee for, but that's not one of them. Do you ever see vintage Scanlan's cards at local shows? Yeah, we see them all the time. You mainly see them. There's a collector con that's run here in Campbelltown and Penrith in New South Wales, and there's always a crap ton of Scanlan cards there, especially the more OG sets. I don't know if they can ever stop shilling. I mean, how easy it is to have a family member do it for you, or a friend or a criminal gang. Exactly. You're never going to stop it. I think where we need them to do more is that when they identify it, they need to ban people for good, and they need to think of a few ways to do that. There's always ways to circumvent the process, right? You're never going to get rid of it. It is what it is. Korean Pies, they supposedly weren't buying back. Turn up last night at 10. Obviously, some shady stuff going on. I'm not sure what you mean there, mate, but maybe you can clarify down below. Game news is almost dead due to players and teams controlling game news. They can make more money selling to collectors. I think that's one of the benefits with Fanatics coming in. I think they could do a lot better for the game news space. So that's maybe one of the wins that Fanatics will have for this hobby, because they can control that process already, right? They might be able to get more stuff like that back into cards, which is very much needed. The ability to create a fake account in seconds, I completely agree. He admitted that it's probably lost a lot more money than made from shilling. I agree, which is sort of why we sort of need to leave it where it is, because the guy's basically, he's done now, right? There's no coming back from that. I go by feeling. If I think it's Fugazi, stop bidding. Easiest way to see if they almost have no history and always bid a dollar amount more than you do. Agree. I've done a few videos on how to spot shill bidding as well by looking at the bid history of the bidder you're competing against, because typically what you see happen with shill bidding is the person with low feedback that's bidding against you typically has a really high bid percentage with the person selling the card, right? There's a way to check it. I have a video, so do check it out, but it's just an interesting one to spot things, but you're never going to stop it, right? It's always going to happen. Crooked guy got caught. Yes, I agree. Using eBay comps for pricing encourages shill bidding. Agree, especially if you're not using Terapeak, right? Because Terapeak is the only way to show an eBay sale that was actually paid for. Not many know that either. So a crazy one. I was talking to eBay on the phone. He said he was looking at shill bidder's account. Only the phone number was listed, no name, no address. And we've had a number of conversations in the DMs as well around some shill bidders in particular in China that screwed me out of a 1-of-1 for my PC, which is very disappointing. I wasn't going to overpay. I think it came to like $700 Australian, and it probably should have been about a $200 Australian card. There's no way I was going to overpay like that. I think you are too nice, Dan. I would crush him and ban him. Like, I think it's just one of those things, Ziggy, like, we need to hold people more accountable, which is what we've done in this instance with him. But like, what more do we have to gain by putting him to the sword? You know what I mean? Like, you don't want somebody to fucking kill themselves or something, right? And maybe saying those words might get this video taken down, but you don't want that to happen, right? Over some cards, like, really? Like, what more do we have to gain by pushing and pressuring this guy? Like, yeah, he's lost his business partner now. He's probably going to have literally no hope of getting a partnership or sponsorship again within this hobby. He's probably going to have a really hard time with people even wanting to collaborate with him again in the future. And again, if anybody does decide to collaborate with him, sure, that's okay, but you need to then question their motives as well. The guy's almost lost everything he could have. So what more do we have to gain, right? He's going to have a hard time trying to make it back into this hobby. So what more do we have to gain, right? And that's the stuff I just want to be careful with. I don't want to be shitting on this guy just to shit on him, if you know what I mean. Like, he's admitted to it. He's got caught. It is what it is. It's sort of the end of the discussion. It's different to the whole card porn situation. Now, do I think there's worth looking into maybe some other ways that he may have shilled? Did he shill on PWCC's platform? Did he shill on Golden's platform? I would really like to see those businesses that have had cards consigned with him or on behalf of his business be looked into, right? Those are the things that need to happen next, right? It's not like we just see this shill bidding happen and then we ignore it. It's like, if you're a business within this space, you need to look at all this kind of crap, right? Because who knows what else he's done. But as an individual calling him out, I think he's basically copped everything he needs to cop. Hello, hubby said like Bruce's wife. Talk about burrito. I think there's an inside joke there. Paul Carl Cards. How's it going, mate? But Buyback announced their buyback program of super factors last night. When they announced the program, there were a handful that were called purchase. How those have been purchased before program? Exactly. I talked to it must have been before you joined, because I think it was based off your comment actually that you were speaking to me about one of the players that sold for $3,000 that you said was too much for that kind of player. You said it was way too high. One of the things I talked to at the start of the video was, okay, how quickly did Topps know that this was going to happen, right? How quickly did they know that this mistake happened? Did they know immediately as soon as the first card happened and they were already planning internally for this buyback program to get implemented? Okay, if they did people know about that and then spread that information, i.e. some kind of insider trading situation where you're working as an external auditor, you know something's happening to this business, so you tell someone that and they go ahead and buy shares in that business and then they make a crap ton of money, right? You can't do that, right? That's fraud, that's inside information, insider trading. Did that occur in this instance? Potentially, especially when some of those cards were maybe immediately purchased. And when you're also seeing some of the comps for some of these cards as well being way too high than what they should be, yet they're way below what the buyback actual amounts are from Topps themselves. So again, pretty interesting. Yeah, that's also the best situation when you're bidding on something and then the person you're bidding against created that account that day. Again, total bullshit. You think these mistakes happen because these companies are overextended? Should they scale back? I think they should, because it goes to something I said a little bit earlier, right? They need to push ahead to make the hobby better. But one of the things they're doing that sort of PSA is doing as well with the volume of cards they're grading is they're saying, well, the demand is there, so we have to do it, right? They have to expand. They have to produce as much as they're doing. They have to grade as much as they're doing. I don't think like that. From my perspective, it's because I'm an auditor, right? I'm very risk averse. When you've got a process, right, and you're trying to offer somebody a service and you're offering someone a product to sell, right? You need to make sure it's controlled and given the best quality it can be. So just because you have that many people wanting to buy your stuff, it doesn't mean you have to expand it completely, right? I would say, offer what you can, right? Make sure you can maintain your control. Make sure you can produce your product without making these mistakes, without cards getting stolen and that you don't know about it. It's not just the fact they're getting stolen, it's the fact they're getting stolen or duplicated and they don't know about it, right? Until it's already released, right? That's the problem. The problem is these graders grading 1 million cards a month and they're totally inconsistent with their approach, right? Yeah, you want to try and get and grade more cards for more people, but what's the point of grading something if it doesn't adhere to your standards, if it doesn't adhere to your consistency, if it doesn't adhere to your values as a business? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I feel like a lot of the businesses within this hobby are sort of just trying to pump it out. And it goes to what I said earlier, and it goes to what I said in almost every single video, right? These businesses have such a terrible risk appetite. Their mindset is still 5-10 years ago. I keep repeating myself. Their mindset is still 5 to 10 years ago. Boxes aren't $100 anymore. They're, thousands. You can't offer people, the same amount of stuff and give us the same value and same service by charging us 10 times more. It doesn't work like that. And that's goes to what you're saying here, Bob, right? Where they're doing too much because they can, but should they? And I don't think they should. Like the hobby's basically getting screwed over as a result of it. And the only benefit to them for doing it is the fact that nobody seems to give a shit, right? Nobody seems to give a shit. People are still buying this stuff left, right, and center. So it's just very, very disappointing. I'm having fake dual bob and Venn autos made in China and selling them at 56% comps. I'll buy it off you for 69% comps. Don Diego's a hobby all-star again, and she's somebody that allegedly she'll bid. So I did a video at the time on that. I think it's one of the videos that got deleted due to a copyright strike. Actually, I was telling Raul this morning, but Heritage Auctions, if I remember correctly, is the platform her shill bidding happened on, or her accusation happened on. Heritage Auctions is my understanding the only auction platform that actually says in their T's and C's that you can shill bid as the owner of that card. If you own the item being listed for auction, you're allowed to bid on your own item. I'm fairly certain they're the only auction house that does that. So it's shill bidding, but technically it's in their policy, so it's just a weird one. Next product Topps comes out with will have auto cards of people from 2,000 years ago. It's very much possible. One thing that's interesting here is they came out with this Bowman Chrome in 2023, and they talked about the fact that boxes had they had loaded boxes, right? They talked about it. They had hot boxes, god boxes, whatever you want to call them, that had, all autos in there or all gold cards or certain parallels. And in my mind, when I saw that, it's an interesting one to think through now with this duplicate card situation was that intentional? Right? Did they mean to do that? Or did they realize afterwards and then basically say, well, fuck, we weren't meant to do that. Let's just tell people they're hot boxes. Could that have happened? Sure. But it's just one to think about. For allegedly shill bidding, yes, I got you, Raul. Authentic Moses with a piece of thick promise. Exactly like it. There are cards out there, I'm sure, like that are already trying to. Yeah, I'm sure there's Bible cards out there, right? The hobby is full of people that got caught. They don't leave the hobby, wake up, agree. There's lots of really influential people in this space that are former criminals, as an example, that still get a second chance, and that's sure it's fine to be. It's fine to give people second chances in life, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. The hobby's very dirty. They're all as bad as each other. You can just have fun collecting your own cards and all that sort of stuff. No consequences. Hobby, unregulated space. Agree. It's pretty obvious as well. If the hobby is the Matrix, is Dan the Card Man that Morpheus guy? I don't know who I'd be from the Matrix. I haven't seen that movie for ages, actually. It was actually filmed here in Sydney, which is a fun factoid. Let's see what else there is. I bid the highest amount I'm willing to pay. If the shield comes in, I'm not going to chase the number. Bidders need to get more disciplined in their bidding. I agree. I'm hopeless at this. I try and do that, but it gets me, and then I bid a bit more and a bit more and bid a bit more because I get into the FOMO kind of thing, which is something I don't preach, but it happens to us, right? Did Topps overproduce Chrome at 100k cases and felt orders didn't meet their sales goals, so they printed more to create a way to sell all 100k cases in their hand on stock? Potentially, like, again, this sort of stuff is very tinfoil, but those are the questions you sort of need to be asking when you're seeing stuff happen the way that it does. And there's nothing wrong with asking those questions. And people think, oh, it's tinfoil. What are you talking about? Well, you know, these questions are often ones that get answered to down the line that get proven to be right, which is, again, something that many people take umbrage to. People take offense to that because they don't like the fact that we're asking tough questions. Meanwhile, they're trying to get sponsored and don't ask them those questions themselves. They also destroyed damaged high dollar cards, is why I refuse to trust a minimum wage dude. No offense to handle said card. Referring to PSA, which I assume you are. Topps did the same thing with Topps Finest Baseball. This year they were called Treasurer boxes, all gold cards number to 25. Yeah, that's one of the things I record as well. So again, was that by design? Was that intentional? Or was that just because their QC is dog shit? And you know, the way they've moved, right? The mistakes they made with those backdoored cards, the mistakes they made with these duplicate cards, the mistakes they've made with the rookies not being included in Bowman 2022, with them being replaced, like all these things happening. It's like, okay, when do all these mistakes reach a point where it's sort of like they're terrible across the board, right? When do these mistakes that you're seeing mean that what you've got on screen right now via this question are associated with that? Like, it's just an interesting one that we need to be talking through because, you know, there's nothing wrong with asking those kinds of questions, but we want the hobby to be better. That's why we talk to it. How's it going, mate? What's up, Dan? How's it going? Good name, by the way. It's always good to see another Dan. They also made Breaker Delight boxes, which pulled hits from the entire pool of brands product from Topps. I need to look into that. I'm not quite sure. But again, Breaker specific things is very disappointing for me. I'm concerned about what that might mean long term as well, especially when it goes to what I said earlier about Fanatics Live and the incentive you've got there for them to funnel products to their breakers so they can double dip on those boxes by selling it to the breaker, by then making commission off the sales and then putting bounties to get people to use their platform more and more and more, i.e. then getting as many commissions as possible. All those things, it just reeks of an independence issue, and it just reeks of something prime for scam. And it's something that needs to be fixed, right? Because a regulator is going to have so much fucking fun with that when they get the chance. Anyone enjoying Panini crafting and NFTs right now? I saw Cage mention that the other day. So yeah, I'm not looking into that yet. NFTs don't do it for me, unfortunately. Topps releasing their print run numbers would be a good first step in getting their credibility. I agree. I think they need to disclose that stuff. There's nothing wrong with being transparent there. I don't understand where the hesitancy comes from. You know, being transparent around all that stuff does more value for the hobby long term. Are they concerned about maybe people tracking hits being made so people then can figure out that, you know, it's not worth buying the product anymore because all the good cards have been hit? Like, maybe. But again, that seems a weird thing to shy away from. You want to be as more transparent as possible to make the hobby a lot more fun to collect. And it's just an interesting one. And it's one that I hope we do see, right? It was in the petition that Aoife's Pitch put out that I talked to in this video the other day with Uncle Dan over there on the left. It's something that needs to be there. If the hobby wants to be as successful as it can be long term, that's the kind of thing we need to sort of see. Just tagged you at a Twitter post with missing Panini packs in a tin. I'll check it out after this live stream. And the reason why I don't want to bring it up right now is because I don't want to accidentally share something that I shouldn't. I don't want to type P into the search bar and you guys see my search history, if you know what I mean. It's Philly cards. Oh, how's it going, mate? Because I think you told me last time you accidentally logged into the wrong account, right? Maybe I'm wrong. From the duplicates I've seen, the serials were clearly done at different times. Intentionally, one of one is shifted to the set name left on one and to the number. And I did notice that myself, actually. So the question I had on that is, okay, were they the replacement cards? But last I record, I don't think we've seen replacement cards get stamped at the time of production. But maybe they do it for tops. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just talking out my arse there, but I think it's an interesting one. I just find it hard to believe that they could all get put into the product and they could confidently say there's 95. I want to know how they know there's 95. Is it because they have an uncut sheet that was missing that they think made it into production? Maybe, right? But it's just odd how they can clearly state they've got 95 in there. Yet people will tell you they can't track cards, they can't track hits, they don't know what's in their product. That right there from Tops tells you that that statement is complete bullshit. You can figure out print runs if you look at the pack odds. You can, but haven't some people proven recently that the pack odds are wrong? Wasn't there a Tops baseball product that this was wrong for? Okay, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm getting things mixed up, but that's just an interesting one to think of as well. And apologies, I'm going to keep saying interesting, Bob. My brain won't let me stop saying it. I've noticed that Auburn, the numbers are further apart from the slash. Yeah, so they're much more to the right, if I remember correctly as well. People's opinions on these controversial topics probably boil down to, do you assume positive or negative intent? Yeah, but I think like it doesn't have to be either, right? Like mistakes can happen just for the mistake of it. But I think these Tops ones, it's probably the negative intent kind of thing, right? Just by the way they're moving. Like I said, you've got Tops coming out and being transparent, which is so incredibly fantastic, but then they're not talking about things like those stolen cards, right? They're not talking about a lot of different things. So what are they doing, right? And why are they not talking about those things? Is it because they don't actually care? Is it because this was intentional? Is it because some other reason, right? There's so many things that are going on. I just like, I don't like how they're cherry picking what it is they want to talk to. Oh, Pepsi Max, give me a sponsor, please. Scotty does a real good job of that in his vids. Scotty B. What's his channel name? Warlock? I forget. Or is it Scotty B? Because I'm fairly certain I'm subscribed to him. Striker breaks it down too. You can figure out and approximate. Product tracking is real, right? Load of boxes is not a mistake. Yes, I agree. I've said since day one I think they can track this sort of stuff from a process monitoring perspective, from a process improvement perspective, from a control perspective, from a procedure perspective. I'd be shocked if they couldn't do it. I'd be utterly shocked, right? I know people say otherwise, but it is what it is. Hobby loaded boxes are not a mistake. They are sent to influencers, breakers for marketing reasons. Again, I think we've seen some of that stuff now to maybe get some comfort that it's happening. And like I said the other day, I've got breakers telling me that they think it's happening. So if breakers themselves are telling us that, and these are breakers that have previously been really pushed back against the talk of hot boxes, that adds more to that story, in my opinion. What happens when more than 95 duplicates appear? I agree, mate. I think that's the next thing we're sort of waiting for, right? Like, is there more out there? Like, how did they? I just want to know how they were so confident that it's only 95 impacted. I haven't yet checked how many cards are in the base set. I'm assuming it's more than 95. Maybe it's just one sheet, but it wouldn't surprise me. And like we've seen with the regular Bowman 23 release, sorry. The regular 2023 Bowman release, there's duplicates in that set too, and they've not said anything about it. And they're autos this time, and redemptions. So it's like, what the heck is going on? Both of them are in the product. Live cards and redemptions in the same product. What the heck are you guys doing? The 101 Supers is different. That's what makes me think they deliberately did this. I think a lot of people are coming to that conclusion now, actually. This sort of dropped not long before I went to bed yesterday, and then I woke up and my DMs were basically filled with all people basically saying the same thing, that they think this was intentional from Tops. We'll never know. And it's an odd thing to do, but it's something that would be interesting for a whistleblower to come forward on. We'll never be able to prove it, but it's just pretty wild if it was intentional, right? Like if these guys did that, that would be a big freaking deal. That's fraud. So it is what it is. Tops know where the Bay 1 of 1 is, right? And Panini sent the flush. Like, again, I'd be shocked if that wasn't the case. And that's what makes me think that Babe Ruth is going to end up on Fanatics Live. His wife Firehands breaks is a hypocrite. He said he doesn't get them, then said he hits booms all the time. I'm like, you're a liar. You hit mid to low all the time like jabs and made me get one in a blue. And just to be clear, Firehand Cards is not one of the breakers that's been in contact with me. I want to make that extremely clear because he's pushed back a lot on the hotbox talk, which is why people maybe thought he was talking to me. He's, 100% not a breaker that I'm talking to about these hotboxes at all. So I just want to make that very, very clear. You were talking about it long before them, though, Dan. Took too long. I'm not sure what you're referring to here, Kiwi Cards, but you can remind me of what I was talking to. I know, oops, messed up on cards and spent money we shouldn't have. Let's write it off as a tax write-off. Yes, that's a lot of stuff that happens within this space. So you can't claim they aren't loaded and say you hit booms all the time. Yeah, contradictory, but okay, and it is what it is. Let's see what else there is. My friend got a treasure box and he isn't a breaker. Yeah, that's a good point. Again, like, I'm not saying that the treasure boxes are loaded going to breakers and all that kind of thing. My question on the treasure boxes was it intentional to create a treasure box, or was it a mistake that they only realized after things were produced, so they came out and said, we did this on purpose, right? That's the thing that I was talking to on that one. Is it a mistake or was it intentional? That's what I'd like to know as well. Will we see all 95 get pulled? I say no. Well, it's like how often do you see every 1-of-1 get pulled in a product? There's some product out there that you don't even see 1-of-1s get pulled. So I think no is the easy money, I would say. I mentioned Scotty B cards again before. I enjoy his content. Yes, I have checked his stuff out. I think I'm fairly certain I am subscribed to him. Adley Order 25. Is that the one that I showed? No, I showed the 1-of-1 in my video the other day. That's a duplicate from 2023 Bowman, regular, not chrome. Let's see. I hope they F up more products and have these bounties in football. Well, there was something that was shared with me like literally before I came live. It looks like Panini can still produce football cards for a little bit longer. It looks like the, I don't know what the correct legal term is, by Fanatics, and the NFLPA was shut down. It's still being worked through, so Panini has more time to produce NFL cards, which I think is a good thing. We want more competition. We want more manufacturers. So the longer they can continue producing cards, the better, in my opinion. That's probably just likely to be extended for a few more months until the lawsuit is actually gone through. But I think it's the injunction the NFLPA put forward against Panini to cease production immediately was rejected, is my understanding. So Panini can still produce those cards. Someone can, again, correct that down in the comments below. The duplicate 1-of-1s, yeah. I think I saw it pretty early. It was around the same time. There's a bunch of people that were talking about it, actually. But the big issue I have with that discussion point is that there are a lot of people that didn't talk to it all, didn't mention it at all, and only talked about it once Topps themselves came out with the buyback program. Now, is that an issue? Not really, if you look at things on, face value. But if you look a bit deeper, were they not talking to it for a reason? Right? Are they sponsored and they just don't want to tell us that? So, again, we won't ever know the answer to that question, but that's how I look at things, right? I look at things through that lens all the time. So I'm going to stay on for 20 more minutes because I need to head off because I'm going for a barbecue, which should be good fun. Scott B was pushing TikTok at one point and uses kids to promote it. I wasn't a fan. Scotty can do better. And again, anyone that uses kids to push content is not a good thing in my opinion, unless they're asking for consent from the people's parents first, obviously. But that's always not a good look for this hobby. It always makes me a bit uneasy how many people use kids for content, especially on Instagram. I don't like to see that at all. I think it's pretty disgusting if you ask me. They set up this elaborate web page they knew a week ago at least. I'm not sure. I think that kind of website would be relatively easy for them to put out. But there's one thing here that I think is pretty interesting is that they were able to image every single card. It goes to another point that I've made where, like, why can't Topps and Panini do this for patch cards? Again, these are probably the digital ones that the artist used to build the card in the first place. Obviously, patch cards are a little bit more difficult, but just imagine having something like this for patch cards for every single release for like Flawless NT, things like Immaculate, right? Dynasty, Eminence, stuff like this from Topps and Fanatics would be, Topps and Panini would be awesome. It would fix the issue with, patch swaps and all that kind of thing as well. Like, do shit like that, guys. That's the innovation we need within this hobby, right? That's the cool stuff. It'd also be really cool if you like had something like that so you knew what every patch looked like. So then you were basically sitting there thinking, okay, well, This is one on eBay right now. I don't really like the patch. I'm just going to wait for one of these cooler ones to show up. I think that kind of thing would be really cool as a collector as well. But again, people might not like that. Hobby he cleaned up and stopped when caught out. That shows he listens. There's many in the hobby that make content that don't. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Warlock. Let's see. Damn Aussie barbecue, you're gonna have some shrimp. We call them prawns over here, not shrimp. But yeah, there'll be a few of those. And then 1 sec, my wife's messaging me. Give me 1 sec, guys. She's whipping the leash, or the whip, I should say. Anyway, I've got 18 more minutes, so get your questions in now. Making me jelly, yeah, so we don't call them shrimp, we call them prawns. It's going to be a lot of meat, which is good, especially on a hot day like this. Have a few beers, should be good fun. With that explanation, after 6 months of delay, Topps recently cancelled the release of the Chrome UEFA Under 21 set. It makes me wonder if they realised they had screwed up that product too, potentially. I think one of the things that we're sort of seeing from Topps with all these issues is that they're doing too much too fast. And the concern that I have, especially now with them trying to get the NFL license quickly, trying to get WWE quickly, they're obviously trying to push the other sports that they don't have the rights to, for right here, right now. So if they were to get it all like that overnight, and they're already making these kinds of mistakes, what do you think is going to happen when they have so much more product to pump through, right? That it concerns me. So 1 sec, wife's messaging me again. They could absolutely do that, Dan. It would be so awesome to see those patches on screen, and it would do so much to protect scams, right? Because it goes to things that I said before. Like if manufacturers did that, right, and they showed those patches on screen, you would no longer have graders accidentally grading a card that had a patch swap in it, right? Because they could use that as a reference, right? It would be a source of truth from the manufacturer. The same thing happens with these manufacturers when it comes to autos, right? How many times do you see sticker autos get put on the wrong card? Why don't these manufacturers have a database? I've said this before. I said this like 2 years ago. Why don't these manufacturers have a database for the person sticking the freaking sticker on to look at it and say, well, this player over here is, Jalen Hurts, right? I can see what his auto looks like. The one that I'm about to stick on this card is not a Jalen Hurts auto. What the F is going on? Like, they don't have things as simple as that within their process. It's like no wonder mistakes happen. And those things, yeah, might be a little bit costly to implement, but they protect the hobby so much further. It's just crazy. It's crazy how such simple things like that could mitigate against so many of these issues, and they don't fucking do it. I don't get it. And yes, this is in reference to the patch swap. I agree. It would fix a lot of issues. Might be limited sets in football, making it more valuable. Foster's for beer. We don't drink Foster's over here either. That's just a overseas thing. I'm not sure what beer I'll be drinking, but it won't be Foster's. Tastes like piss. That's not good. We need to show the NBA, NFL, NHL, NBL, WWE, etc. and the courts what mistakes Panini and Fanatics are doing. And the hobby really wants licenses shared across multiple card companies. Again, I completely agree. And I said this in my video the other day. What's so funny about the whole Topps and Panini thing right now is that Topps, in their court documents, are basically saying Panini's incompetent, right? They're coming out and saying that Panini is not giving customers within this industry the value or the respect they deserve by all these mistakes they're making. And Topps are saying all this shit. Meanwhile, they're making the exact same mistakes as Panini, right? Like literally the exact same mistakes. And they're saying that Panini's incompetent. Like if Panini was smart, they'd be really trying to leverage some of those talking points back against Fanatics, because we need multiple manufacturers. People say it didn't work in the 90s and the early 2000s, but we need multiple manufacturers. And we need multiple manufacturers producing the same sport. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe you can restrict things from a player perspective. You split the playing pool. But I just think you need two people producing things at the same time, because the innovation and creativity you get off the back of Topps going head-to-head with Panini, trying to make cooler cards than the next person, would be so good for collectors. But I agree where the value chain is impacted because of that, right? Because you can't have it streamlined across the board. But it's just not good enough. So, yeah. Okay, prawns. Yes, they are prawns, mate. Not prawns here. We call them seahorses. Yeah, but you guys... you like sheep over there too, so I'll just leave it at that. He was joking. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Ziggy. Is it fall or spring? We don't call them either of those things. We don't call it fall, we call it autumn. But we're about to head into summer, essentially. So, good fun. It's going to be quite hot too, based on what they're saying. I think what they're saying is the next 6 months are going to be like the hottest 6 month period in like a couple of decades here in Sydney, which I'm sort of looking forward to. I'm not a big fan of, hot summer, but I love fishing, so I'm going to do a heck of a lot of fishing over the Christmas break. It's good fishing here in Sydney at that time of year. Go up the north coast, do some fishing on the beach. Good fun, good weather. It'll get very hot though, like 40, 45 degrees plus on a good day. So good you can cook an egg on the road, which is always good fun to do as a kid. You got to think of the mess up to marketing genius transition now with the bounties. They make money back easily. Yeah, and I think the thing to keep front of mind with this is, was it a mess up? Was this a marketing ploy from the start? Who knows? But either way, they've reacted quickly, which is something that we've wanted within this hobby for so long, right? Panini, we've done this issue and not said anything. Like, just like Topps didn't say anything about the backdoored cards, they've said something here. So at least they've said something, right? They've done something, but lots of questions that are still over the whole process, in my opinion. But it's an interesting one. You can buy Paint and Manning Merino Hell Montanas for pretty cheap, comparatively speaking. Again, it's like that for all sports, right? People like to prospect, unfortunately. It's crazy. I always found the scamming side of the hobby the real fun of it. Without the scammers, things get boring. All these videos make the scammers go quiet, not quit scamming. I think that's a good point as well. I just think some people sort of see this stuff and get turned off. They get disappointed with the hobby. Disenfranchised is maybe the right word. It shouldn't be looked at like that, right? There's a lot of dickheads here, but it's primarily just amplified by the fact it's on social media. Like, the hobby is a lot of fun, right? Card shows are a lot of fun. There's lots of people out there that are a lot of fun. So don't let it get you too hard. Why do they have to be so vague about the relics? 99% of the stuff is player worn now. It's all Walmart jerseys. I completely agree. I think they need to go back to using game use stuff, but I really want them, when they've done game use stuff, to actually tell us which game it's from. Like, Futera has a lot of issues with QC, but they do a really cool thing where they used to tell you, they don't do it anymore because their website's fucking dog shit, but they used to tell you not only which game your jersey was from, but if you scanned the code on the back of the card, it actually showed you exactly where on the jersey your piece of relic was cut from, which was fantastic. And they don't do that anymore. Or they do it, but their website doesn't work. So that's the kind of shit we'd like to see from Panini and Topps. That stuff is cool, right? As a collector, that stuff is really cool. Like, I'll quickly show you something. I go over here to my Instagram. I'm probably going to do a video on this in a few days' time, actually, is that this card on here, I spent a few hours the other night, and I figured out exactly which game this piece of relic was from. It's from a 2013 friendly, and I think stuff like that's cool. And it looks like for Andre Pirlo, they use maybe 3 or 4 jerseys across all his flawless cards. But stuff like that is really cool, in my opinion, being able to spot that. As a collector, that stuff is cool, because now I can go ahead and watch that game, watch how he played, or as a fan, just feel a bit more connected to the card itself. But these manufacturers don't seem to care about that sort of stuff anymore, which is, again, disappointing. I like beer too. Would be super easy to have cards be scanned as they're cut and then use OCR/AI for quality control. There's a company that does that to evaluate every single grain of rice. I'm sure they could, but it's one of those things where, do they need to? Do they want to? They make so much money as it is. People don't give a shit. So that's why you're not going to see stuff like this, unfortunately. But they could. There's 100% they could. They could be doing a million times better than what they are, even through things very simple that I just explained around, checking autos and having a database and all that kind of thing. Like, those things are simple, yet they won't even do those. It's just dumb. Is your weather getting colder while ours is getting colder? No, so ours is getting hotter now. So we're the inverse of what you guys are. You guys are getting cold, we're getting hot. If you're a fan of scammers, what the fuck? That next didn't Mike Tyson. I think he's not saying he's a fan of scammers. I think he's just saying he likes the content. He likes it being called out, because he means it's a good thing, right? If it's being seen in the video, it means these guys are getting caught, which means there's less and less of them, I think, is what the guy's trying to say. Seems like the approach of many creators and collectors is guilty until proven innocent. Mistakes do happen. Not everything is an intentional conspiracy. I agree. I think there's some people that are like that, but I think from my perspective, I think I'm pretty fair and balanced. So I'm not sure if you're referring to me there, but if you were, I'd probably take offense to that, because I feel like I do a pretty good job staying as fair and balanced as possible. Can I say beer again? Yes, I can. Beer. I'm gonna have a lot of beers, right? It's hot outside today, so in all honesty, like, I don't think there's anything better in life than doing some yard work, cutting the grass, doing whatever around the house, and then having a beer in like 40-degree weather. It's just so good. And that's 40 degrees Celsius. It goes down so good. You're afraid to tie. in card collector debacle. Yeah, I've seen the videos of stuff like that where some of these, you know, automated QC controls and things like that are so crazy how quickly they work. They could do that for this if they wanted to. They don't want to. They don't want to invest the money. And they've got no reason to right now, like I said. Have you ever seen the Big Dipper and how do you sail at night with that North Star? Oh, you're asking the wrong guy about the night sky and the stars and all that sort of thing. We have the Southern Cross down here, though, which is pretty cool. So we do have that. I can understand mistakes with base, but they have to take an extra step for zeros and autos. I completely agree. They need to do a lot more with stuff like that. Mistakes happen. It just comes down to how you be accountable about them. Would be great to have other companies make cards for all the leagues, not just one particular company. That's how it was in the 90s and early 2000s. But it didn't go down that well. I think that essentially, someone can correct me, but I think that stopped when Panini came on board. I think they were the reason why we basically went into a monopoly, and then Fanatics have just taken what Panini's done and then done it 10 times worse. Topps and Panini have that bad blood. It's literally like watching two mafia families go head to head, right? Like they're livid with each other right now. They're ready to kill each other. Maybe Topps will stop product if they have to make 2 more sports cards. It would be great to only have to buy a few sets instead of 20. I agree. I think we need sets to be consolidated. There's too much crap out there right now and too much volume that we need a lot more. It needs to be a lot more targeted. But again, how do they make things more targeted if they are planning to 10 times the hobby, as they've said many times? I'm sure. Is it goats or sheep? How much does the guy winning the 1-of-1 print make? Is it hourly or salary, background check? It's probably peanuts. He's probably making nothing at all, you'd imagine. But again, that's not a problem, right? You need those kinds of employees, right, to do some of this work. It is what it is. It's a byproduct of the world we live in. But it's not the fact that they've got, you know, entry-level employees or hourly workers working on this sort of stuff, or contractors. It's the fact that Topps, Panini, Fanatics, these businesses don't have enough oversight in place to make sure shit like that doesn't happen, right? You can have that stuff there, but you need better oversight. You need better monitoring. You need better QC. You need better internal reporting, all that kind of stuff, right? And they don't have that, which is why those mistakes happen. It's got nothing to do with the person on the ground job making the mistake itself. He's let down by the fact that the business he's working for is a bunch of clowns. That's the problem. Not sure what that comment is trying to say. I would love to know what the next collectible piece you're looking at getting next. I don't have anything in mind right now. I've just went out and bought, like, I'll show you here again, like most of these flawless cards that you're seeing here, I bought in a relatively short period of time. Like a couple of these I had it for a long time, but this, you know, Willian over here, or this Willian, I should say, this Vieri, what else is there? These two were bought in like a relatively short period of time. So I've spent a lot of money recently. So I'm sort of in a holding phase at the moment. I'm not really buying too much, but it's sort of like I'm just waiting until something decent catches my eye. And it'll probably be something flawless soccer related as well. Because I'm just on a bit of a soccer thing at the moment. But again, I'm not targeting anything specifically. It's going to be one of those things where it just has to be something tied to what I do collect, and it has to be something that catches my eye. So I'm not actively chasing things at the moment. In terms of maybe what I'm chasing, actually, there's a Franz Beckenbauer rookie card that I'm in the process of picking up. So that'll be the next thing that I buy, actually. So I kind of lied to you there. Apologies. Apparently, the printer is separate to Topps. Topps own the printer as separate to Panini. Topps own the printer, which is part of the issue that Panini had. That they were using a printer owned by their competitor, which is pretty wild. Is all of this stuff just a way for Fanatics to prop up cards based on the declining market? Again, who knows? That's a very tinfoil, something I talked to a bit earlier. But again, those are the questions you sort of need to ask in situations like this, because it is entirely plausible, possible, in my opinion. Especially when they've got so much control over the market. That's the stuff you need to ask, right? They've got an incentive to make sure the hobby is propped up. Does that mean they've done something like this? Maybe, maybe not. But it's something we should be talking to. 70p Rush to Judgment examples. It'd be good if you could name a few of those. Do you get snow in winter? Of course. Yes, we do, but only in very select parts of the state. And it's more so the elevated, like in the mountains and stuff. But not in New South Wales, and not really in Queensland do we get too much snow. I've only seen snow once in my life, actually. That's how rare it is over this way. The Back to the Future piece is Elite. They're pretty cool. So that's they're all 1/6 scale figures produced by Hot Toys. The one at the top is the first film, Back to the DeLorean. That one's the second one. And then I've got the figures there that you can see here. They're quite expensive. I talked to those in a video, actually. The DeLorean at the top, I missed out on when they launched it because my credit card expired. And then I couldn't buy it again, and it sold on the secondary market for like $3,000 or $4,000 Australian. And then when they announced this one, I found somebody selling the original one, and I managed to get it very cheap. So I'm happy with that. I've got them all now. There's only one more that's still on pre-order, which is you can't see over here. Where's my hand? There's the Marty from Back to the Future 3. There's also a Doc from Back to the Future 3 as well that's on pre-order. That should release in the next few months. But they are pretty cool. Back to the Future is probably my favorite film series of all time. I don't rush to judgment more often than not asking the questions and made the case that most of the stories about scammers and the virus going on is the people that are trying to gaslight into you. So basically what you're saying is you're sort of dealing with the fact that people are gaslighting you and saying nothing's actually wrong, and that's what you're sort of rushing to judgment on. Well, I think we use the Southern Cross for our guiding light, but again, that might be worth a Google. The Southern Cross is the main constellation in our night sky, and I assume that's what sailors use, but again, maybe Kiwi Cards can confirm me. Or Zar Crazy One, or if anyone else is still here, that's Aussie. I think Global's Aussie as well. Make the cards after the season is over so we get Game Use member no redemptions. I would like to see that as well, but it's an interesting one. One of the things I talked to about, if we go back to that whole, stolen card situation, the one on screen right now, where you basically got this happening, it's like, well, why could we not have cards produced earlier? Why can't we have all the sets maybe produced at the same sort of time, so then you can have an athlete sign multiple sports at the same time, and then you do a delayed release, a staggered release of product. Whereas right now you sort of get manufacturers chasing their tail consistently because they're trying to put sticker orders on cards that are releasing today, but they're meant to be for cards that were released tomorrow. There's all this sort of stuff that's happening, right? So why can't they just do what you've said, produce them all in one sort of, little block? That way you can get game use stuff, and that way you can then also get most of them signed at the same time, which means you don't get issues like this. But again, that's just me talking at my ass a little bit. Currently 33 degrees Celsius, here heading for 36. Yeah, I think I saw today it's gonna be like 38 where I am at, but I'll be in the pool, so that'll be good fun. See what other comments there are. Appreciate the kind words, mate. Well, to be honest, none of the manufacturers look at autos, really. They don't, unless you're getting the in-person auto stuff. But if it's on the card that's meant to be, they don't provide a guarantee over it, which is disappointing. Talk about at the pool, maybe. So Dan, you are an auditor, right? Have you ever audited a printing company? I'm always curious who in the industry have seen large printing presses run and have some understanding of the process. So no, I'm not. I audit financial services clients. I'm in the banking and insurance space. But the thing that's interesting here, right, and I'll give you my thoughts on this, is that it doesn't, you learn pretty quickly, even at university when you're starting to be an accountant or you're getting your CPA, you learn pretty quickly that from a policy and procedure perspective, there are a set of basic things that need to be put in place and that are consistent across the industry, right? It doesn't matter what industry you're in, there are things that are expected to be there and should be there, right? And based on the mistakes we're seeing, right, it indicates those things are not there. So that's how I can then make comment and say, well, I don't think their control environments, I don't think their risk appetites are where they should be, right? Because there are mistakes being made that shouldn't be getting made, right? And they should be having fundamental policies and procedures that catch this sort of stuff. Now, the second point of that, I've not audited one of those businesses before, so I don't quite know how they work. I've actually done a fair bit of research as to how, these printing places work, especially the ones that, Fanatics now own, especially the ones that Panini uses, right? There's videos out there on the internet that show you how things work. There's been interviews with the likes of the owners that have talked to some of this stuff before in the past. So it's me factoring in how I understand policy and procedure. It's me factoring in what I've seen from these videos that have been put out there, explaining how their process works. It's me factoring in what I'm seeing happen with issues. And it's also me factoring in what these people are saying about their process and what it is they do and don't do. So it's all those things, factoring in and me coming out and saying, okay, this is what I think's happening, right? This is why I don't have a whole lot of confidence. Now, again, I'm the outside looking in. I need to be the auditor to be 100% confirmed that stuff is happening the right way or the wrong way. But like I said, there's stuff that you expect to see, and these mistakes are clearly indicating that those things that are meant to be there are not there, right? And that's how I can make the comments that I do. And again, it's just my opinion of things. It doesn't represent the place I work. It doesn't state as fact that is actually what is happening with these businesses, right? With their printing and all that sort of stuff. But it is it is what it is. And you have told me that. I would love to fly over there, but it's not cheap. I got a baby that I need to look after, so it's not hard. But I would love to do that, because I think we need that kind of transparency on this sort of stuff, right? We need to see a lot more as to how these things actually work. But again, there is enough information out there to you get at least somewhat of an understanding for how this stuff works. That would be good fun. I would love to own a DeLorean one day, as I did tell you that before. If a weird science man approached me about going back in time, would I do it? Yeah, I probably would. Mainly so I can go back and not sell all the cards that I sold in 2017, because I'd be sitting on a lot of money right now. So that's what I'd go back in time to do, to be honest. Talking Back to the Future, yes, I think that's who I was referring to. Yeah, Select do a really good job. So Select produce AFL cards here in Australia. They are fantastic. I think they do a good job. Their pricing is just too high, unfortunately, but they do a really cool job for the most part. I'm a CFO, and my job is to trick Dans. Yes, that is the case. CFOs and auditors are the enemy. So very much on point with that comment there. Nobody likes the auditors, which is maybe why nobody likes me as a content creator, but it is what it is. You're a cleaner, you fix patches problems. Great live stream, Dan. Thank you. Top's truly treating this industry like a gambling parlor. I completely agree with that comment, and I think, you know, unless they pull their finger out, like I've said many times before, regulation is coming. So I think I'm probably going to drop off now, but if anybody had any final questions, I'm happy to answer them for 5 more minutes. If not, I'll see you guys in the next one. Happy to answer a few more questions. Yeah, and I think those incentives are only going to get worse, to be honest. Like I've said a few times now on this stream, you've basically got Tops owning everything, right? Fanatics owning everything. So there's so much incentive there. So it's just an interesting one. Thanks, mate. Good to see you again, Wet Wipes. Patches, as always, good to chat. Thanks, mate. It was a good chat this one, 2 hours, which was pretty good. My voice has survived. Thanks, Global. I'll try and enjoy the sunshine. The NRL Grand Final's on today, so I'll try and avoid it. But we'll see. I'm not sure what you were talking to Warlock there. I can't see a comment from him. Or you mean the cleaner comment? Yeah, I'll have good fun with the Barbie. Have a few steaks, some sausages. Get on it with the beers, and then cook in the sun like a lobster. Thanks, mate. I'll see you at the Hobby Hangout. Good to chat to you at the show the other month, but look forward to seeing you again. Mate, I'm not part of the thin side of the family. I'm definitely on the chubbier side. You guys can only see me from like here up, but if you look below, I got definitely a few kilos that I need to lose. Take care, everyone. All right, I'll probably wrap it up there. Thanks, everyone. As always, really good to chat to you all. If there's anything else you want me to flag or talk to in a video, please reach out, via the DMs on IG, send me an email and we can chat to it. But as always, it was a good chat, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.